Ready?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Tartaria Australia, autodidactic, and by
Michelle. Yes.
popular demand, we have Michelle Gibson back with us for part two of our discussion on the Mandela effect and
Yes.
wherever that leads us, Michelle.
Time manipulation. Yes.
Welcome back.
And
Welcome,
I can take
Michelle.
you deep down a rabbit hole. Thank you
Ex
so much. It's great to
Oh,
be here. And for the part two continuation of our discussion last time, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, I get an email from Campbell saying, we really feel like we didn't finish.
We did this.
We need
I
to
have
have you
so many
back on.
questions. Yes, it's true. It's true.
Yes.
yes.
So,
Continuation. Yes.
how are you, Mr. Purvis? Are you good, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good up here in Mullaney. It's good. I've actually got the house to myself. My roomie's away and you're in Melbourne, like shivering. I'm guessing it's sort of 1 or 2 degrees where you are, sitting outside in the cold.
I know. I'm on the balcony in Fitzroy, and it is very cold. I'm rugged up for deeper than I was in Morocco. So yes, I've got 10,000 layers on right now, but here I am. I am on the balcony committed, so I can, have my
See what we
nasty
go
habits,
through,
Campbell,
people.
nasty habits.
I know, right? See the sacrifices we make.
Hey, so listen, before we get into another mind-boggling, blowing show, I just want to do some public announcements. Number one public announcement is everyone out there who's tuning in. If you haven't checked this out yet or you haven't heard about it, Tartaria Australia is launching its own newspaper. And this idea came about because we thought, there's just so many marvelous, amazing human minds that operate around this community and they're not into the zoomies, but man, there's so many people who have so much content, articles, photos, maps, theories, ideas, and businesses and services and modality. And we're like, let's roll this newspaper in physical form. Back to 1988. Interesting. We'll bring that up later. Back to 1988, where things were real and physical. And we're literally going to send you a physical newspaper in your mailbox wherever you are in the world. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you have anything you'd like to contribute to the newspaper, and there's really no limits because this is for and by our community, and including if you have a modality service, practice, art, product, anything of service or anything that you are producing personally that you want to advertise to our community, if you want to put classifieds in, you want to just unravel one of your grandest theories or provide us with some photographs of your experiments with electric culture or any golden nugget tips you have for off the grid sustainable living or any legal advice you have for anyone trying to fuck the system, like any of that. We would love you to submit. It's super easy. It's on the homepage of the website, tartariaaustralia.com, and you can just submit straight there.
Mm,
And of course, we would like you guys to subscribe to it. So we are sending the
yes.
first edition out for free so that you guys can see that it's real and what it's actually going to be and how exciting it is to sit there and, roll your little doobie and have your cup of tea in the balcony and read your fantastic newspaper, which is coming out bi-monthly starting next month, actually, Campbell. So first public service announcement
Wow.
to get involved with the and Michelle, we would absolutely love you to contribute to that newspaper. I think you could do a regular feature in there and everyone just be so happy and excited.
Yes, yes. So link below, guys. Just click on Tartaria Australia, scroll down till you see it, and you can submit it online through the website.
I
Very
mean, it's a
easy.
marvelous idea.
It's
It's a
marvelous.
marvelous idea
Marvelous.
because marvelous because it's really nice to actually not be on this computer screen and actually have something tangible arriving in you. I mean, it's marvelous. Like we've got to start using our mailboxes or they're going to become non-events. We're going to lose them. If we don't use them, we're going to lose them, people. And we
Yes,
all like
yes.
having a mailbox,
And
even though
print,
nothing comes
right?
anymore.
They
Yes.
can't come in and scrub words out and censor it.
That's right. And, of course, for everyone in our community, even if you're only barely interested in this idea, which I don't believe that's true because it's a marvelous, marvelous idea, um, you should probably just sign up for the first edition so that we have your address on tap. Because, who knows what the fuck's going to happen with this crazy shit. I mean, today we're going to be talking about some crazy things that could have already happened. We don't
Yes,
know.
we
But
don't
like it'd be
know.
really good if we could all stay in contact somehow. And if anything happened, Campbell and I'll be able to get something in the mail. So old school. So that's
Definitely.
public service announcement number
Yes,
one. And thank
number
you for your
one.
patience. And we've got a
Oh,
few. All
we've
right.
got a few. Witness statement. We're going to leave the
So
link for the documentary witness statement below. So go and check that out, share it around. It's all about the whole, what happened in 2020, and it's all the legal information, how it's all illegal, corrupt, blah, 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 blah. It's basically like a court sort of
document.
session, isn't it? It's a court
Yeah.
document. You could literally go in and just press play in court, and
I mean, it's dry.
it's got everything. So it is dry. It's not, it's a little bit hard to get through, but if you're after information, if you getting harassed still, anything like that, or just if you want to sue the government, right? Let's all
Yeah.
do it. Then
That's basically
go
what
have a
it
look,
lets you
share it
do.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. All right. So second public notice is that we have got our second volunteer week 2 week period coming up starting at the beginning of June in at the farm. So if anyone's been thinking about it, inkling about it, or even slightly amused by the concept, then it starts. Campbell and I will be there opening up the gates for a 2 week period, and we would love to have you come roll up in your camper, your caravan, your tent, your car. It is you have to be a bit self-sufficient here. You need to have basically your home with you in some respect, and the things that you would need for that period. But it's going to be a blast. We're going to have heaps of fun. We're going to build out the outdoor lounge room and cinema and some cobbing and some all sorts of fun things. So if you are inspired to get involved on a physical level with Tartaria Australia, then the next volunteer is happening only in like 10 days time for two
What?
weeks, Campbell.
Is it 10 days?
And if you would like to be involved, again, go to the homepage of the website. You're going to find a link for the volunteer information, fill it out, and you'll get the WhatsApp group and you'll be online for a bit of an adventure, which we love. All right, last one. I mean, we've
Last
got millions,
one.
but last one, so we don't put Michelle to sleep, is you would come, wouldn't you, Michelle? You would come to our volunteer weekend if you were near, if you were in the same country.
I would.
You would. And we will be getting you
I
there
would.
at some point. That's right.
Yes. Yes. Next year. Yes. But you'll have to keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one.
Because it's a marvelous idea as well, isn't it? It's a
It
marvelous
is.
idea to be physical
Marvelous.
again together. And we saw it in Bosnia, didn't we, mate? Like it was really excellent to be all gathered and in physical form together. Like the ideas, the conversations, fantastic. Really gold. You never forget it. Uh
Absolutely.
yeah. And the third one is that Campbell and I are announcing a live event in Mullaney. Of course, that's where we've moved. We've got to know the town now. We've discovered the community hall. We love it. It's got an amazing setup, and we really, really love Mullaney. And we thought, well, fuck it, let's just do our first show here again. It's our last show was in Mullaney, so a bit of a cycle happening there. But yep, that's going to be on the 19th of July and tickets will be on sale this week. So if you are in the region or area and would like to attend a more formalized show than what the Jolly Swag tour will be, which is converting itself into a mystery school, by the way. But for a more formalized show, Campbell and I are going to spend the morning pulling out the most gold, gold, gold rabbit holes of the whole Tartarian field, all the fucking excellent ones, the fun ones. We're going to go through Tartaria for the morning in all its most excellent glory. And then in the afternoon, we are going to focus basically where we are today, what's happening today, and where we are in our conversation about reality moving forward today. It'll be a really fun show. I think we've cracked our formula for the live events. I think this will be the one that tours. Very excited to launch it in Mullaney. So that's happening on the 19th of July. There's a link below this. Tickets on sale this week. All right, enough. Thank you, everyone. I feel like a news broadcaster. Now for the weather. Or now for the Mandela effect.
You're up, Michelle. Show us a rabbit hole.
All right, let's go.
Oh,
Where
I
did
got
we
a big one.
finish? All
Got a
right, good.
big
Got a
Tell
big
one.
one
us.
for you.
Big one. We're into big
Got a really
ones.
big one.
Let's do it.
Okay.
And I decided to continue along the lines of time manipulation from our last conversation together. And I pulled out the research that I did for something that is central to the work that I've been doing and was guided towards long before I started doing this. And I think I said in the last show, it's like everything that's happened in my life has like brought me all the pieces that I needed to do the work that I'm doing now. And what I'm going to talk about today was one of those pieces. And it sounds crazy,
Oh, good, 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 Michelle.
But
I dropped my lighter. Yes, I'm listening.
the world we live in today is crazy. So
Yes.
how did we get here?
Where did the crowd
And I'm
come
gonna
from?
and I'm gonna walk you through how I think we got here,
Good.
and then provide supporting evidence from others, which I'm going to start with, and then go into the line of research that I've done that provides supporting evidence for it as well.
Let's do
Ah,
it.
you're such
So
a systematic thinker. I love it.
I know.
So it really brings a lot of structure to conversation.
actually, let me get out of here for a second. I think I need to.
So for
There we go.
anyone
I need to
who didn't know where we got to last week, I mean, we're still on the Mandala theory. We're still looking at the timelines, the Mandala theory, and what the hell that glitch was and what's happened in our reality since.
Yes,
So Michelle's going to pick up from that conversation. Oh, you're so organized. Fucking excellent.
this.
Geez, Campbell. We look
I
so
know
unprofessional.
we gotta get our shit together. And by the way, guys, link below if you want to get your shit together every morning,
This is
6:30.
fun. Oh my God. We're like a machine of offers.
I like one of those, yeah,
Yes, 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 yes.
We're like a cereal
But
box.
wait, there's more.
And there's even more than what I'm going to share today, but I had to focus it, or I could have gone off in like 20 different directions. And I wanted to stay focused on the time manipulation, the Philadelphia experiment, and the Crowley connections.
Nice.
And I talked a little bit about Crowley, Aleister Crowley last time. Um, we talked about the time manipulation and the Mandela effect and CERN, which from research I did in 1990, so many things happened that year that seem connected to the Mandela effect. But I'm going to take it back even further in time. I noticed in some of the comments, people were saying, well, this happened before 1990. So we'll look at how they've been messing with time and how that could also contribute to Mandela effects over the years. And there's some collective happenings that this may be applied to. So like 1990 may have been the year of all of us, having that mass experience of, let's say, half the population remembering Mandela becoming president of South Africa after becoming freed from prison, which is what I remember. And another half of the population remember him dying in prison.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
How is that even possible? And how are these changes that you described with, books and everything going back over years with these changes in them?
Yeah.
So I decided to focus on this particular aspect of it. Um, and hopefully you guys will have me back so we can go down some of the other rabbit holes.
Oh, no
Yes,
But
doubt,
I
Mr.
needed,
indeed.
Gibson, no doubt.
but I needed to focus on this or we'd be here for much longer time and that some of the information would get diluted and I don't want that to happen. So I want to start with a message that you passed along to me from one of the viewers who responded after our talk 2 weeks ago. And this person said, hi guys, is there any way you can pass a message on to Michelle Gibson? She spoke about the Philadelphia experiment and its connection to her theories. I want to tell her to research Al Bielek, who claimed to be a time traveler. Al Bielek gave several extensive interviews, which amounted to 9 hours plus,
Yeah.
difficult to find for free these days, but in them he spoke of everything Michelle mentioned having to do with Montauk Boys, the Philadelphia experiment, and how he and his brother Duncan were a part of it. Both time traveled together. They, controllers, had ability to implant souls from one person to another. And he also mentions names we are very familiar with. And she
Mhm.
thought this might be around 9 years ago or so. Um, I do believe that they are working on transferring consciousness, not just from
Mm.
one person to another, but people to machines.
Robots, yeah, for sure.
And I don't really make that aspect of it a focus of it, but I have encountered some information that would indicate that. And so as I go through this, I'll talk about that. But before I really get into my PowerPoint, I want to share this video clip from Prime
Alex
Time with
Stein.
Alex Stein.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was a particular interview with Ashton Forbes. And this is like a 17 and some second, a 17-minute and some second version, I think, of a longer interview. But there were some parts in here that I wanted to share. Hang
Mm.
on. Oh, goodness
And
gracious.
Ashton's been researching the disappearance of, what is it, MH170, was it? 370.
370. This was Malaysian
370.
Airlines that
Yeah,
disappeared in 2014.
yeah. And they've
Let me
never
see
found
here.
any traces of it, just disappeared mid-flight.
Yeah.
And Ashton's he's got some footage with little orbs flying around it, and then it just
Mhm.
disappears. So check out his channel if you want to know more.
Okay, so let
Yeah, I
me
mean
make
that
sure I
whole
get.
thing just happened, and like it just happened, and the world moved on, you know?
Mm. Yeah, well, it's kind of like a lot of stuff that happened in the Bermuda Triangle, right? I mean, whatever
Yeah,
happened to the Bermuda Triangle? That was massive when I was growing up, right?
yeah.
What happened? What do you think happened?
Yeah, so I think that what we see in these videos is what happened. As hard as it is to believe here, I think the United States government has gravity and space-time manipulation technology. Like literally, not just anti-gravity, which is if you talk to these UFO people, who I'm not a big fan of in general, they'd be like, yeah, we've got anti-gravity technology, which you see this first orb kind of doing around this plane.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to see this plane just straight up disappear. And this is where it comes into this complete space-time manipulation technology. Now we're watching these orbs spin around the plane, but they're moving around with purpose here. They've got this triangle formation, perfect equilateral triangle. They're doing something, you can tell when they're spinning around. It appears to be mapping the plane. Now we've been able to figure out this seems like they're trying to map the plane to figure out exactly how big the singularity needs to be. And then they shift to this vertical orientation. And this is right before the zap. Now in this video, it seems kind of weird, but you can imagine that somebody might be able to come up with this. I mean, we're clearly looking at real clouds here. We've also actually shown that these clouds are moving. It's just that they move so slowly because there's only a few seconds of each perspective shift that it's hard to see that the clouds are moving, but I guarantee you they are. I have a video we can show if necessary. We're looking at low altitude cumulus clouds. This plane's flying low. We see smoke coming out of the back of the plane here. The plane is descending, we were able to figure out. This is the accurate turning capabilities of a Boeing 777 on display here. We can also tell this screen is cropped. This is a cropped screen recording. And we can tell that because we can see this mouse coming in from the top right and moving off the top left or bottom left of the screen. We also believe that this is a screen recording because the mouse comes from the top right and it ends and goes back to the top right, as if it's clicking on start recording and then clicking on stop recording at the end. The coordinates in the bottom left, they say NROL 22 in the bottom left, which is the first launch of the SBIRS system, Space-Based Infrared Satellite Constellation System, in 2006. And then we can see those coordinates in the bottom left as well. And they only move when the perspective shifts. So this isn't a situation where you're looking down on a satellite that's moving. The way that these systems work is that they actually collect the satellite data, send it to ground-based computers, and then somebody can log into the computer system and say, pull up Nicobar Islands at 1840 UTC. I want to, track this giant area. And then in this case, it looks like what they were doing is they did a cropped screen recording of a giant area, and they cropped out the drone, which is our second video. Yeah, so again, for the people that want to know like who filmed this is the United States assets that are out there. And this satellite capability is completely unknown. We were able to deduce the satellite capabilities from looking at this video and then doing research about the SBIRS system as well as.
So you're saying the satellite shot this is what you're saying?
So what it really is like Google Earth mixed with
they put them on balloons
software.
Well, yeah, have you ever seen that? Where sometimes they have cameras on balloons, like China has spy satellites that are on balloons. They've landed. Could have been one of those. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, in this case, we believe I'm going to show you another video real quick. We mapped every single satellite that's out there, and we found USA 229. This is a naval ocean surveillance satellite pair. We looked back at all the old trajectories of all the satellites. And turns out this is a satellite with another satellite right next to it. The whole purpose of this satellite is to track boats, planes, and other objects. And we see in the top of the screen here, you can see 1840 UTC, and these satellite pairs staring right down at the coordinates that we've got here. And this is a low Earth orbit satellite pair.
Real quick, Ashton, before you share the second one, has there been a whistleblower that has said that they revealed these videos, or how did we get these videos?
So I dug around for people that would have leaked these videos, espionage, willful retention of classified information, and I found Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lynn. I spent a couple of weeks looking around everybody who had ever been charged with this stuff in the time frame, and Edward C. Lynn checks every single box. In fact, they obfuscated the charges against him. They tried to get him with espionage and put him in prison for life. And it turned out that he never exchanged anything with anyone from China. The government had to admit it. He flew on spy planes. He had signals intelligence experience, which is how all these assets communicate. The defense argued that the classified information in question was available on the internet. The government would never say what it was. The government was actually so afraid of going to trial because they thought that they would have to show what the classified information was that he leaked. Now, if that classified information was available on the internet, was it these videos? These videos have been confirmed to go back to 2014. The first one was published May 19th, 2014. This one was published June 12th, 2014. So you can imagine a scenario where somebody leaks these videos one by one because they think that the world is going to know the truth, and that Edward C. Lynn was potentially, maybe he even thought it was UFOs. I think we're looking at government technology.
So you don't think
maybe
it's an
he thought it was
extraterrestrial?
UFOs.
I think, so you think this
No.
is a technology that we have here on Earth?
I do not think that this is extraterrestrial. Now, I don't know where this technology comes from. The more I learn about this, the less certain I am about where this technology potentially comes from. I would argue that if you go back to the Philadelphia experiment, where we claimed that this battle cruiser teleported somewhere, they were trying to cloak that. Now, there's some engineers that were on board this plane, and supposedly they were working on advanced cloaking as well. So I would argue the reason why I don't think this is extraterrestrial is because this is an operation. People ask, why is the drone filming this? It's not, they were just randomly filming an airplane, and then all of a sudden some orbs come along. This was an operation, start to finish. I think this plane went to Diego Garcia, and that's where a lot of these conspiracy theories that out there think
What's
the plane
Diego
went.
Garcia? Wait, what is that? Why don't I know what that is?
A lot of people don't even know Diego Garcia. So I'm going to show this other screenshot right here as well, where if this plane did get warped, teleported, wormholed, whatever it is, then using the right-hand rule in electrical engineering, this plane would be going to the west because we can map out its direction of travel. It's going backwards. And what's to the west is the Maldives. So in the Maldives, there's some islanders that saw the plane in the early morning hours. And Diego Garcia is this military base down here in the British Islands, or British Indian Ocean Territory. It's a very advanced military base. I've been told this is like Area 51 on steroids. So maybe they are hiding these orbs there. Maybe they test the orbs out here. It's a good spot to hide an aircraft. There's nothing nearby. And this is where like Mark Dugain, Catherine T., that witness, as well as Gregory, I forget what his name is, the comedian out there. A lot of people thought this plane went to Diego Garcia. And I actually happen to agree with them. That's the most logical place for this plane to end up. The only reason why the experts discounted it is they couldn't figure out how the plane could get over to the west of these islands where these islanders saw it. Well, if we have some kind of space-time manipulation, teleportation type technology, then this plane shows up over here in the Maldives and then just flies south to Diego Garcia. There was Philip Wood, the American passenger, the adult American passenger. There was a weird picture that's all black that gets posted on 4chan like a week after this plane disappears. And it says he's being held prisoner somewhere and he doesn't know where. And it turns out they looked at the EXIF data on it. And the EXIF data has coordinates for Diego Garcia as well. So while I can't prove that's where the plane went, throw out all the other conspiracies. That's where I'm putting my money. I'm going to say that's where the plane went.
Okay. Let me get out of here. There we go.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So anyway, I just wanted to start with that.
So I mean that was a big event that occurred and sort of got like lost and forgotten about. So you're Michelle, you've brought this up, linking it to time manipulation over the Mandela effect.
Just the whole idea that it's even possible.
Yeah.
Time manipulation, time travel, and that we apparently, from other sources, have advanced technology,
Yeah.
which enables that to happen, and it's kept hidden from us. Falls in the realm of conspiracy theory, like what I'm going to be talking about here. But that's how they hide it from us. They've just been gaslighting us tremendously about everything for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you look up DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and if you follow alternative media and alternative research, you hear about DARPA being associated with Black Ops and things like that. But if you look up DARPA, it doesn't say that.
No, no.
And
They
it's like with
advertise
everything
it.
else, they're not, they're not going to say that.
It's all
They're
for
going to
our
say all the
good.
wonderful
They're just
things.
trying to help us, Michelle. Come on.
So, so that's how they obfuscate it and hide it and, keep showing us movies and keeping us distracted. And I'll go into that too. Um, so there's this whole sequence of events, it seems, that have been building on each other. And so I'm going to talk about some things in 1981. You mentioned 1988 earlier. We talked about 1990. And then, it just seems like there's so many things that are yet to happen that are tied to this. I'm going to say collective MK Ultra.
Yeah.
I think MK Ultra went from individual one-to-one trauma-based mind control, developing split personality type thing to this worldwide campaign to create fear and terror, so that we willingly give up control
Mm.
and stay in that fearful state.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
And so,
just so anyone who's not heard of this, there's a theory out there that in 1988, the universe experienced, past the world, experienced an extinction event that was so catastrophic that it forced a reset. And in 1988, it occurred, and we just sort of like skipped over to a new timeline, and didn't barely notice a thing, except that since then, 1988 to 1990 to Y2K to 212 to now, the world's been feeling a little bit cardboard and obscured, like something like its soul has been impacted and it's missing. So that's the 1988 theory, that there was a catastrophic event that like forced a reset because everything went into extinction potentially. So carry on, Michelle.
so, so we're all guided into doing this work in different ways. And I know for me, it's coming from a very deep place, and it feels like I was given this information over the course of living my life, and it was like, okay, I gotta get this back out there. And so, I keep moving forward, keep going deeper, but I'm going to share my journey of how I was guided specifically into this. And then also, um, it's just something that keeps going on. And provide an explanation, like I said earlier, for how we got to this world that we live in today. And I can show you the pieces of that puzzle that I found that seem to fit together and provide a plausible explanation for that. So the first thing I'm going to share is my personal journey into all of this work was based on first learning about sacred geometry, then about ley lines, and then about the Moors. But I've been interested in hidden history and everything else that's been hidden from us as far back as I can remember. Sometime around 2007, I went to a Flower of Life workshop when I was living in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I learned about sacred geometry. And this was a crucial piece to the beginning of my work, and specifically my original work. Sacred geometry is a language of geometric patterns that spans all cultures, timelines, and species on Earth and beyond. It is a foundation of everything in existence when broken down to the smallest parts. And it's the creation pattern of the universe. So I just want to step in real quick here and just say that the meanings of all of this have been inverted like everything else. And so to me, this is not negative at all.
Yeah,
This is
that's
how
good.
I learned about so many different things, and it's in everything. But it has been inverted. And so people coming onto it nowadays learn about the inversion and look at it like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's bad.
Star of David.
But it's not. This is everything in existence is based on sacred geometry.
Yep.
And so this image on the top left is the flower of life pattern, and all of the sacred geometric shapes are found within the flower of life, depending on what you're connecting. And there's feminine lines and masculine lines and the whole 9 yards. And so
it's also lasered into some granite in Egypt, isn't it? They don't know how it was
it
actually
is.
done. They can't explain it. Mm.
And that's at the Osirian in Egypt.
Yeah.
That's from what I remember. And so it was learning about this particular shape here in the middle, what's called the star tetrahedron, that I learned about that led to connections that I made several years later. And then I came across Hugh Newman's Megalithomania conferences for the first time in the spring of 2011. And I watched as many of those as I could for several years. And these alternative history researchers came together and presented their research on earth mysteries, earth energies, dowsing ley lines, sacred geometry, and how everything was laid out perfectly in the landscape over long distances. And I guess, how could this possibly be? If these were all random civilizations, how is everything perfectly mapped out geometrically on the surface of the earth? So that was during the incubation period, I guess, of my own work. And then I moved to Oklahoma City in 2013, and I started attending a Unity Spiritual Life Center there and met a Moorish man. And it was through my friend that I started to learn about the Moors. And OKC was where I started to see what was hidden in the landscape around me: megaliths, earthworks, old world buildings, and so forth. And it was when I was living there that I went to Pinnacle Mountain State Park for the first time. And this is outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. And there's only one place in the whole park that you can actually see this on the left-hand side, where you can see that it looks like a pyramid.
It's a pyramid, man, for sure.
And then the only place you can get this view of the other two pyramids is from the visitor center observation deck. And I was lucky enough to get it on a partially cloudy day. I went there another time and it was completely cloudy. So this was the best I could get when I went there. And I promise you, you cannot Google pyramids in Arkansas and have anything whatsoever come up about them. So there's 3 pyramids like what you find in Giza in the middle of Arkansas.
Why?
And nobody knows anything about it. And I mean, you can climb up and down Pinnacle Mountain all day long, these big megalith stones with like green lichen all over them,
Oh,
very old.
really? Wow.
People are going up and down, no idea.
Wow.
And
Maybe
so they've
they would call
hidden
it
this.
Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean,
They've hidden this. It's like the pyramids in Australia. They
Yeah.
hide them by not telling you about them. And then when you start to ask questions, they're like, well, some farmer was clearing his field and they just piled up
Yeah.
the stones that way.
Yeah.
So they don't want us to know these things. And just more of the lies that we've been told about everything in
Yeah.
our world.
Totally. I mean, even with the Bosnian pyramid, most people, or definitely all the mainstream, still say, no, that's not a pyramid. I've seen the rocks, we've been in the tunnels, like there's pyramids there, right? But they won't admit it. The mainstream just don't want us to think they're all over the realm. It's like, just focus on Egypt. Egypt is
Yeah.
pyramids.
Yeah, and there's one in Mullumbimby, Campbell.
Mullumbimby, yeah, so we're
What's
going to check
based in
that
the-
out. Like it looks like that one there. It's just this massive
Mm.
pyramid. It's crazy.
And I was watching a video only yesterday about New Zealand pyramids. So yeah, I mean they're definitely all over the place for sure. And Michelle, just side note, I'm curious, do you remember what the inscription was on the Bosnian pyramid that they found at the front door? Do you remember what that was?
What was it? It was
I don't.
Don't
something
remember.
about that they are here, they are coming. We have to fill the tunnels in to protect something,
Seal the doors.
seal
Yep.
the doors, and then something like when the time is right, we'll be back to open it back up again.
Yep, something like that.
Yeah.
Just side note, that was
Yes.
inscribed on the inside of the Bosnian pyramid and discovered. All right, carry on, Michelle.
So one of my travel buddies, Anne, gave me a map of the world because she said I needed one. Otherwise, this would never have come into my life. I would never have thought of this. I put it on a cork board next to my dining room table. I studied it while I ate, and I started seeing cities in North America lining up in lines. And so these fainter lines here
Oh,
were
yeah.
the first ones that I found. Because I knew about sacred geometry, I was thinking, well, I found these here, and I thought maybe I can find another one. And I found that. Well, I'll pick it back up. I wonder if there's one down here. So I found the second one where the bottom apex is in Merida, Mexico, and then the top apex is Edmonton, Alberta. And so this was where my journey started in finding the ley lines that I found, taking them around the earth, extending them out, and then going from place to place to place to see what was there. And it was like everything just fell out. The original civilization fell out, what happened to it, who was behind it, how they'd go for star forts and all of these other things when they were colonizing. And actually that's simplifying it by quite a bit. But this was where my journey began and how the information that I've accumulated all over almost 7 years started and just go deeper all the time. So what I did was I'm just gonna escape for a moment and just show you my spreadsheets. Um, Before I even started tracking ley lines, I was noticing things like hot springs, all kinds of hot springs. These are places that have the same characteristics: waterfalls, salt lakes, copper mines, mountain ranges, geometric shapes of all kinds, snaky S-shaped rivers, which are all over the earth, and
Yep.
creeks also.
Yeah.
Um, Canals, arch bridges, lighthouses, onion domes. You can find things in national, state, and local parks, civic buildings like dome capitol buildings, aqueducts, ruins, canyons, bluffs, mesas. Um, these were things that I was starting to look for and identifying at different places. So everywhere I went on these ley lines that I started to track, I could find examples of all of those things, and then the stories that went along with them. All of the the prisons that were built by prisoners themselves, which I'm
Yeah,
sure you
right.
have in Australia also.
Yeah, with no escape tunnel. Jeez.
Those kinds of things. The stories are very consistent all over about how things came into existence.
Yeah.
1850 is like
Gold.
a really big time
Yeah, man.
for everything.
Yeah.
Others as well, and I'll go into that. So this is what my work is based on, are things that when I extended the lines out, I wrote down the places that they went through and saw this sacred geometry, the patterns of sacred geometry emerge from that. Um, and like I said last time, you've got a lot going through Australia.
I was just reading those. Yeah. Cow Barry. Jeez.
And the different colored lakes, the pink lakes, and you have pink lakes in different places around the world. So I have all these spreadsheets and I go straight to the location and just see what's there. I haven't done all of these. I've done quite a few. It could be very time consuming. I was finding nuclear testing along these lines and other nuclear sites. So it appears that after what I think they destroyed the grid, they were continuing to destroy different places on the Earth's surface. And I know that there are some testing sites in Australia,
Yeah.
on the Nullarbor plain,
Yeah.
and I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. There was testing's gone on in different places, but I did find them on these alignments as well. So
Hmm.
they appeared to be targeting it.
There's a big satellite array
So
out there too, isn't there? Out past Nullarbor in the back of the black stump, as we say.
Oh God,
I,
it's so elaborate. I mean, why? Why so elaborate? I always ask this question, Michelle. Why so elaborate? Why not just enslave us like they already have and just be done with it?
because they can't.
They can't. They're
Because we're
trying.
fucking gods, because like we're
They
so
can't.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
They could only do it if they could convince enough of us to believe them.
Well, Jesus.
I know it sounds crazy, but let me
Yeah, man.
delve some more.
We are the resistance.
We are that. We're pretty stubborn about that. So I had found the work of Peter Moon sometime around 2014 when I was looking for
Yeah.
more information about the Moors, which is very hard to find. And Peter has a lot to say about Aleister Crowley in his books and the dark occulted nature of the timeline that we've been living on. Peter also has been involved in a lot of work on about the Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk Project, and time travel research. And so I started reading some of his books, just looking for information about the Moors. And I haven't read all of the ones on the screen. I think I've read all of them except this one here on the Philadelphia experiment. But the lady that emailed you, the ones that she had mentioned are in Peter's books. Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron and Preston Nichols as having been involved in it and time travel experiments and
Yeah.
things like that.
Nice. What's
And
Spandau? Do you know what the Spandau mystery is?
yeah,
what does
that's one I've read.
what does Spandau mean?
It's Spandau Prison in Berlin.
Oh, okay.
And most of Peter's books are classified as science fiction. And
Get away with it, yeah.
he's interesting because he was in the Sea Org. His parents were killed in a car accident. He was born and raised in California. Sea Org was L. Ron Hubbard's
Hubbard, yeah.
or, organization in which, as Peter explained, he was teaching people how to become operating thetans, Thetans,
Yeah.
meaning remote viewers, the ability to get out of the body and go out and, see what's going on. L. Ron Hubbard is notable for having been involved with Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons.
Yes, yes.
And so there was an opening of a portal that the person that emailed had mentioned, and I didn't go too deep into that. One, I don't know a lot about it, but because I did want to stay focused on this, but I believe it was in 1947. It's called the Babylon Working, if
Mhm.
anybody wants to look into it, Babylon. And so L. Ron Hubbard had this history with the occult. He also wrote Dianetics, and I don't remember if he had a complete change of heart or whatever, but Peter explained that the purpose of the Sea Org and this whole early manifestation of Hubbard's work was to get us free from our bodies and be able to do these things on our own. That, as Peter said, got weaponized by the U.S. government once they realized what was going on, got it shut down and replaced it with the Scientology
Ontology.
that came afterwards with all of the inherent problems.
Mm.
That was the
You know,
first cult that I ever looked into when I was like 17 years old. Scientology.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I went up and did the test once, like some
Yep.
dude on the street, and then we went home.
Same.
We were like 15 or something. Oh, mom, and she freaked out. Oh my God, it's a cult, it's a cult.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
So
really yeah, I really studied and looked into it. I was quite fascinated by it. Yep. So carry on, Michelle.
yeah. So that got shut down by the US government when they figured out what was going on, I guess. But
Yeah,
its
yeah.
initial premise was to help people learn how to, let's say, remote view,
That's interesting.
something
And
along those lines.
all those little meetings happened out on boats out on the ocean too, didn't they? Is that right? Like between Elron and different people, they were all offshore on the water
Yeah,
on his
yeah,
boat. So I don't know
yeah.
what that means.
I
So
would go with that if that's what you remember. It's been a while since I've read it. I think that was the Montauk Book of the Dead that he was talking about his connection with the Sea Org and how that came about. The Spandau Mystery is presented as a work of fiction, but it's very interesting.
yeah,
And
I've never seen the word Spandau before, apart from that 80s band, right? Spandau Ballet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
so it has to do with things around General Patton and what he was really killed for. Noble Drew Lee, who is an important prophet of the Moors. This is Aleister Crowley here. This is Hess, and Hess was imprisoned in Spandau.
Ah,
And so it was a fictionalized story, but it kind of takes you through this whole idea of the chronovisors, and the ability to watch time
the future, yeah, yeah.
through these chronovisors, and that, how Crowley got visited by this entity that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. And then throughout the book, Crowley's just moving around through these time periods. And so it's been many years since I've read these books, but that's the general idea. This one I need to go back and read because I think there's a lot more in there for me to find. But I read Pyramids of Montauk, Explorations in Consciousness. I read The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, Black Sun. We'll talk about something related to that here in just a little bit. And I read Synchronicity and the Seventh Seal. And one of the difficult things with Peter's work is that he's almost writing like a stream of consciousness. So there's all kinds of information contained in these books. And it's like, now where did I read that? And you have to go back and find it. But there's a lot of tidbits in here. Philip Dick, the
Yep,
science
yep,
fiction writer,
Sci-fi.
if you're familiar with him,
yes, yes.
he was mentioned. I think it was in the Montauk Project Experiments in Time book. And I think he had some experiences related to this topic.
Interesting.
So it was in Synchronicity and the Seventh Seal that I read. I want to say I was reading this probably 2014, somewhere in there. And this was years before what I'm doing now is even a thing. I mean, I was just gathering information at this time, but this stuck with me. This and reading in one of Peter's books that we were knocked off a positive timeline. And I'm like, what? What? What are you talking about? Because prior to that, I was following the end of the Mayan calendar up through the end of 2012. And I had learned about unity consciousness. I'd learned about all these wonderful things and ascension. And I'm like, yeah, we're heading towards it. And then later I read that about we've been knocked off our positive timeline. And then between like 2012 and 2016, I learned how dark the dark was. And I read this during that time. And from what Peter says in this book here, on the 12th of August of 1943, Aleister Crowley, myself, and this was Crowley's son speaking here, and 5 other people were gathered around an ancient stone monument called Menontoll near Morvine, Cornwall, England. You will note the remarkable similarity of the name to Montauk. Um, the stone itself is called a quoit because it has a large circular hole in it. I was made to lie on a length of board, and this was inserted, me with it, into the hole. It was like the ferrite rod that is put into an electric coil. Alistair performed a ritual which appeared to cause a line of rough water between this spot in southern England and Long Island in the United States. The OTO, which is the Ordo Templis Orientis, which was Crowley's organization, disputed it, but his son stood his ground according to this. And it says here, virtually all the occultists and psychics I spoke to, including Cameron, had no problems with Amato's claim. But what was interesting was the sighting of Menontoul as a sacred spot is now legendary and received international attention in 1998 when the entire New Age crowd noticed on August 11th of that year that a solar eclipse revealed a shadow line which ran all the way from Cairo to Montauk and went straight through Menontoul. And I do believe that the Great Pyramid is central to this as the central piece of what I believe is a pyramid grid.
Okay.
And so this is Menontoul down here, and this is where Crowley passed his son through on that date, according to this source of August 12th of 1943.
Wow. So that's like a stone talk.
So, so that was where that idea first came into my head. And then I've also encountered the date of July 22nd of 1942 for the original Philadelphia experiment. So these next slides give an overview of that. That the large generators of the USS Eldridge were switched on. It was done in plain view of other merchant ships that were in the Philadelphia Navy Yard. A green haze or fog formed around the ship as the fields built up. Then it was claimed that the green fog disappeared, taking the ship with it. It was a success. It was invisible to radar and to the eye, and then it returned after 15 minutes. So they're talking about it was masked, the equipment on the ship had been altered, and this caused the crew of the ship to become very sick and disoriented, and that when the ship came back, the crew was sick, some were missing and never found, and some of the men were fused to the steel of the ship embedded in the bulkheads.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is really fucked up, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
What?
Whoa, like what?
And it was seen what in like a couple of 100 miles away, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's
So
crazy.
they're like saying, okay, there's all kinds of accounts, but didn't happen. It's fake. There's nothing to see here. But
False
like
memory.
we were talking about earlier, that's what they do.
Yeah. Gaslight us.
And I'll get into more examples as we go through this. So the interesting thing about August 12th every year is it's the Lionsgate portal.
Yeah.
And so it's a gateway between the physical and spiritual worlds. Its peak position and Orion's belt moves into direct alignment with the pyramids of Giza, opening the cosmic 88 Lionsgate portal.
88.
So
Interesting.
So every year it's looked forward to by very spiritual people for these qualities that it has as a portal.
Mm.
All kinds of good stuff, right? The July 22nd date would have been during the heliacal rising of Sirius before the sun. And that's actually during the time that you're going to be having your thing on July 19th, which I know because my birthday is July 19th.
Oh, is it?
So either of those dates would have had astronomical significance.
Well, my birthday is August 13th, so I'm one day after the Lion portal start. Ooh.
I mean, come on, 888, 88, Lion Gates portal. I've done heaps of ceremonies around the Lion Gate portal, 888. Yep.
So I believe a new timeline was inserted over the original civilization, and that the Philadelphia experiment, at the very least, caused a time distortion, and at the most was responsible in large part for the destruction of the Earth's energy grid, which then caused great destruction of the surface of the Earth. And I'll go through evidence for that. So I've theorized for several years now that the years 1492 and 1942 are the boundary years of a new timeline called Rome. There are 450 years between 1492 and 1942 that can be divided evenly into 9 50-year periods. And at the beginning of each of these 50-year periods, much was happening in our historical narrative. So with 225 years on either side, 1717 is the new midpoint year, is the midpoint year. And so I feel like this new timeline was grafted, I believe the new 3D time loop was created that somehow mirrors or involves the figure 8, upon which a new history was grafted onto the existing infrastructure on the earth and falsely attributed in the new historical narrative. And the Ouroboros, or the figure 8 on its side, is symbolic of the Lion's
Infinity
Gate.
loop. Ah, yes,
8.
infinity. They've got us in a loop.
But I find these things out later.
All right. Continue.
The midpoint year of 1717 was the year that the premier Grand Lodge of England was founded in London on June 24th of 1717, and was the first Western Freemason Grand Lodge. The same year, the same lodge adopted the Anno Lucis that same year, in 1717, as the Masonic calendar. The Anno Lucis calendar adds 4,000 years to the Gregorian calendar. So there you've got the Luch coming in.
Lucius.
And, you know, we hear about Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, and they have the Anno Lucis, the year of light and light bearer. And, you know, again, those behind everything that's been taking place want to build themselves up in the best possible way so that we give our consent. We just don't know what we're giving our consent to.
No, so I mean, because we've got a weird calendar, right? Our calendar doesn't start at 1; it starts somewhere in the middle, which is just weird. Do you think that maybe this Anna Lucius timeline could be the original one, and our weird dating system has been put over the top, or any thoughts on that?
You know, it's possible, except that it's based on the whole idea that we came into existence like at 4004 BC or something like that, 4000 BC. You know, everything came in, and that's a good question. There's a calendar that it's based on. This Irish prelate, and off the top of my head, I can't pull his name out. So that's what this calendar is based on. But that's a good point, because we know the calendar we're on now, the Gregorian calendar, is linear.
Yeah.
You can ritualize really easily on it because the same things happen on the same dates year after year. And that the original ancient calendars, the Mayan calendar, the Egyptian calendar, the Hebrew calendar, were different and based on cycles of time.
Cycles, yeah.
And it just seems like they wanted us focused on linear time for their own
I mean,
purposes.
that could also explain why they're so into numerology and all their dates and everything, right? Is that's literally the overlay, is this false timeline, right? Literally, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
So about the false calendar, the dating, everything.
I believe that, Campbell. I believe that's why we have it, because you have, March 22nd, 322, Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
You have 9/11.
Yeah.
You have all of these. You have October 31st. You have all these dates that are their ritual dates
Yeah, yeah.
for
And
doing something.
9/11 as well is also, I've read that that's Jesus's actual birthday. So it's an interesting date.
So again, with the Philadelphia experiment, I've theorized for several years now that the years of 1492 and 1942 are the boundary years of this new timeline. And I did a video on this back in November of 2018, and I explored the events in our historical narrative around these years in the context of the insertion of a new timeline. And so, as shown in this photo, The Philadelphia experiment involved the USS Eldridge, a naval destroyer escort for merchant ships. The ship's generators were turned on in view of the other ships. A green haze formed around the ship as the fields created by the generators built up. When the haze disappeared, so did the ship. It returned to view after 15 minutes, like I said. Did it just become invisible or did it go somewhere else? And if it went somewhere else, where might it have gone? And what was the real purpose of the Philadelphia experiment? And then I asked the question, what if the USS Eldridge went back in time? For some reason, the conspiracy theories I'm mentioning here have come back into form to be consumed by the public as movies like The Final Countdown, which was a 1980 movie where a time-traveling naval vessel in the form of the USS Nimitz goes back in time to the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941. Another 41 year, which I've found to be significant. And I've long thought that the Philadelphia experiment was a deliberate manipulation of the original civilization's energy grid system in order to create a rip in the fabric of space-time. The Netflix show Stranger Things was based on the Montauk Project, and that was the original name of it.
What the
So again,
show was going to be called Montauk Project. Is that what you mean?
So what I'm saying is the Netflix show Stranger Things
Yeah.
is based on the
That's
Montauk
fine.
Project,
Yeah.
and it was originally called Montauk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Wow.
So they have to tell us what they're doing. They have to have our consent. But this is how they're doing it without telling us that they're telling us.
Hmm.
I've never been drawn to watch Stranger Things. It's of all the random things. I guess if it was called the Montauk, I would have watched it for sure. It
Yeah,
was Stranger Things. I've
Like,
just been like,
I've seen the first one, and it's interesting because that there is this other underworld area, right, with beasties that may have been created by something.
yeah, or brought
yeah.
forward by something.
Hmm.
So I'll go ahead and stick it in here because I didn't look it up until this morning. But what I found out was that the Montauk Project allegedly ended in 1981 when the Air Force Base was taken down, the Montauk Air Force Base. And 1981 rings bells for me. Not only was it the year I graduated from high school, but from the modern timeline research I've done, all hell broke loose in 1981. That was the year of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. The Egyptian president Anwar Sadat was killed. Pope John Paul II was shot at. AIDS came in. Also, that was when suicide bombings started and planes seemed to crash and fall out of the sky and all this stuff started happening on
Yeah,
a worldwide
terrorism.
scale
Yeah.
that were so
Yeah.
traumatic.
The 80s, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
I mean, it was a big shift, wasn't it, from the 70s, the late 70s, where the sort of peace and love was still sort of hanging around a bit, and it was obviously disco and that, but 1980 was suddenly everyone in suits and business and make what you can and jump on people and all these movies like Wall Street and all this kind of stuff. It was a real change to materialism, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely felt like the 80s was when America picked up materialism at a new level.
And
Like it became much more of a
mm,
thing, you know, the commercialization of products and bits and bobs.
Mhm. And the computer started coming in, like
Yeah,
the IBM um, and other computer systems were coming in, personal computers, which is like it's a good thing, right? And that brought us the internet, which is even better in terms of our awakening, because none of this would be happening if we couldn't access information and connect with each other and do our own research.
yeah,
So that was kind of a double-edged sword for them. They needed it for their systems and for their control. And even, in talking about DARPA earlier, Facebook started out as LifeLog, which was a
Yes.
DARPA project.
Yes.
And then it got turned over to Mark Zuckerberg and became Facebook
Mm-hmm.
as a
Yeah.
way of monitoring us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, with our consent, right? We
Don't you
just
think it's
freely
cool?
put all this stuff up there, you know.
And on a side note, which may have no relevance at all, but just as an observation, the 80s color spectrum changed. So that put us into hypercolor clothing and a totally different version of a color spectrum, a commercialized color spectrum. It was a very strong shift in the 80s.
Fluoro, man.
Yeah,
Fluoro.
yeah, we were all in these. It was a strange new era of color production, which is just interesting because what does the human brain take on board with the color spectrum? Like less than 1% of what's like out there and viable. And it's interesting because as we look at today, with the things that are happening today, the color spectrum is also like shifting a lot. Like the when you talk about the green frog surrounding the Philadelphia experiment, we're seeing that sort of aurus borealis, green, energetic, the light, the color, the skies are changing color. There's videos, pink skies and yellow skies and green skies all over the place. So the color spectrum or our perception of the color spectrum may have been impacted since these experiments, or certainly it felt like in the 80s there was a shift there, and we're in it again now. So we can't under observe color because our color spectrum gives us the nature of reality. Like what we're able to perceive by color is exactly what we see as reality. So
Well, it's frequency. It's like when
yeah.
you look at the photos from the 70s, they've all got that orange kind of tinge to them, don't they?
Mm,
Like,
mm,
and we all remember the sun being a lot more orange, and
mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's interesting.
It's just something to observe since color is definitely like featuring very broadly now with our weather anomalies and just things that are happening in our skies. So side note, back to the 80s.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to take in consideration, but it's like if the Montauk Project actually ended in 1981, and that was very much trauma-based mind control
Yeah.
kinds of things, psychological warfare. And what I was seeing was that prior to 1980, 1981, there were a lot of civil wars. It's when the troubles
Yep.
in between Northern Ireland and Ireland were happening. That was civil wars in African countries where they would divide the population into North and South and give the kids guns. And I'm not kidding.
Mm.
I mean, the babies were fighting these civil wars. And they
Mm.
get people all wrapped around the axles. One would be Muslim, one part of the country would be Muslim, and the other part would be Christian, and they would discriminate against one party, and then they'd cause all these hardships. That was going on until around 1980. So 60s, 70s. And then in 1980, it was like all this stuff started to happen. So I don't know if they transitioned from one experiment to another, taking the civil conflicts and the the individual trauma to, okay, now we're going to go get everybody. We're going to
Yeah.
get everybody
Yeah,
scared.
yeah. Oh,
You know,
terrorism
you go to
kind
a
of thing.
movie, your movie theater goes up in flames. Oh,
Well, I
and
mean,
yeah,
like
they've locked the doors.
it's interesting because if we just play with this idea of 1988 being an extinction event and a forced reset, like it's interesting to if we play with that idea as a premise, the steps leading up now to 1988 from here. Like we're starting to see, like they did. I agree with you, Michelle. I got really into the Montauk experiment. It was horrifying, horrific. It was one of the most horrifying rabbit holes way back when I was quite innocent to all of this. Um, But yeah, if we're starting to see the Montauk be translated into a worldwide experiment and out of the confines of the individual, and that sort of started at the beginning of the 80s, it's interesting,
Mhm.
like, where did it end up? Where did it take? You could see how potentially it could have generated a worldwide extinction event. And because it was so specifically around time and mind control, like you can see how it could have forced
Mm.
a reset on us, and we sort of skipped into this new timeline. Is this an interesting? So, yep, keep
Yeah,
going.
and
Yeah.
also just
Yeah.
as a side note, like it wasn't 1980, but what was 83, 84, the whole nuclear winter, those movies that came out,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
showing this complete destruction. I've forgotten the names, but there were two big famous ones that were really, really and very traumatizing.
Very
Wow,
traumatizing.
yeah.
There was an animation
The,
that
the
came out in
day
England.
after, was it the day
Yep,
after? Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
And
So,
then movies like The Crow and Firestarter and Cujo, all these, weird
Cujo.
movies.
Cujo, Amityville
Queen
Horror. Yeah,
Cujo. That was
yeah.
my first horror movie, Cujo. Jeez. My grandma used to feed me Baileys, and made me watch horror movies with her. And Cujo was the one that traumatized me the most. Yeah, it's true. There was a
Yeah.
whole new level. And when did Jaws come out? Because that really fucked the world
Yeah,
up.
that was early
Was that
80s.
was it the
Yep.
80s? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
Gremlins.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, Eric. But it's true. I can
Okay.
see how we could be trapping the progress here of potentially something really big happening.
Yeah. There's so many rabbit holes just in this little discussion that we've had. And then, and then what we're dealing with today, where more people are waking up. And I certainly see that in the cyber community, but our friends and family are like not getting it and sound asleep. How did, bright, intelligent, well-educated people get to the point where they're so easily controlled?
Manipulated, yeah.
Well, because
You know,
it's true. My family are like this. But like at the end of the day, it's because it's too traumatic. They don't want to put their mind on it. They think putting their mind on
yeah,
it is just exhausting and traumatizing. So the trauma engaged with it is like a shutdown. It's a shutdown
yeah.
MK
valve.
Ultra.
Yeah.
Mm.
So anyway, I'm just bringing you along in my personal journey. And so the next part of my journey, going deep into this research, I had already started blogging and making videos in June of 2018. And then a friend of mine who's a psychic who's a psychic stopped in to see me, and this was, I guess, probably in the fall of 2018. And as we were visiting, she received some messages to convey from my guides. I don't get this information, but people connect with me, they can give it to me. So one message was that what I was mulling was correct, and I was pondering a connection between 1492 and 1942. And the other was an image she received of Ireland that was white, cold, and frozen on one side of 1742. So white, cold, and frozen on one side of 1742, and bright and sunny on the other side.
Wow.
So that prompted me to look for what happened in the year 1742 on the internet, and only two things came up. I had no reason to look here. Maybe something would have guided me here later, but this is how I got here. The first was that Dublin, Ireland was the location for the premiere of George Frederick Handel's Messiah on April 13th of 1742. And the only other thing that came up was an extraordinary cold weather event in Ireland between 1740 and 1741, during which time the Irish population endured 21 months of bizarre weather without known precedent that defied conventional explanation. The cause was not known. It seemed bizarre to me that Handel's Messiah would premiere in Dublin right after this extremely cold, lethal weather
Yeah.
event. And this is findable, and you can look it up, and this guy wrote a book about it. And estimates of like 500,000 people dying. That's the number that comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, this time period of 1740 to 1741 of the Great Frost of Ireland was in one of the 950-year time periods that I was talking about in the 450 years between 1492 and 1942. Around the same time the Great Frost of Ireland was taking place, the Royal Order of Scotland was founded in 1741, which is an order within the structure of Freemasonry, whose members are invited to join based on advanced Masonic criteria. The logo of the Royal Order of Scotland on the left has a symbol that resembles the sun, and the logo of the Jesuits on the right, which is one of the symbols of the Black Sun.
Yeah.
And that has high occult significance. I did read Peter's book about the black sun, but like I said, that was a long time ago. And I know I've
Mm.
encountered it in context like this and,
Well,
Satanism and the occult and that kind of thing.
and there was a lot of Black Sun type stuff going on in 1942, right? With the Chancellor, as we call him, and his sort of people running around the world and the whole Tory Society, um,
Mm.
which is very sort of Black Sun oriented too, isn't it?
Yeah. So they essentially have the same sun symbolism with, the spikes and
And the flames, yeah.
the
Okay,
flames.
yeah. Gotcha.
Okay.
Interesting.
Just 3 years later, in 1744,
Uh-huh.
Mayor Amschel Rothschild was born in Frankfurt, Germany, and established his banking business there in the 1760s, which became the start of an international banking family. Starting out as a dealer in rare coins, his business grew to include a number of princely patrons and continued to expand into an international banker and profiteer from the Napoleonic Wars. So that was 3 years after the Great Frost.
Okay.
Just 2 years, then on February 6th of 1748, Bavarian Illuminati founder Adam Weishaupt was born in Ingolstadt, Bavaria, Germany. He went to a Jesuit school at the age of 7 and was initiated into Freemasonry in 1777.
Ah,
Weishaupt's radical view on Illuminism got him in trouble with the ruler of Bavaria when writings of his were intercepted and deemed seditious, and he fled to the Duchy of Saxe-Gotha-Altenburg under the protection of Duke Ernest II starting in 1784.
isn't that interesting? 1776, of course, the founding of the USA, and Saxe-Gotha, that's the bloodline that is currently ruling England, the UK.
Mhm. And in 1750, Duke Francis of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld was born, and he was the progenitor of the new royal houses of Europe that replaced the original ruling families that got all taken down.
Yes.
And his granddaughter, great-granddaughter Victoria married her first cousin, Prince Albert, and they ceded most of the royal houses of Europe, including what became the House of Windsor. And
Interesting.
on July 17th of 1917, King George drops the title of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha for Windsor, with the reason given that they didn't want the anti-German sentiment associated with the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha.
Who happen to be ruling a completely different country, but yes. So,
Yeah, there's definitely a connection between the German faction and the British faction.
totally.
And, the word fraud comes to mind. It's like they're frauds.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, totally.
that's
And
how I
I
feel.
think I think we all know that's gone on around the world, right? There were original kings and queens who were in service, right, to the people and doing what they should be, and they all just got eliminated.
No, fuck them all. What are you talking about?
The most famous one, yeah, it was the Tsars, right? Nicholas II
There's
in
no,
Russia.
there's no bloodline, family line that are designed to be kings and queens and rule us. What are you talking about? It's all fraud. It's fraud from the very beginning.
Yeah,
It's
it's
fraud
fraud.
within
It's all
fraud
fraud.
within fraud.
Mm.
We don't need, you need
Totally
a
agree.
king? Fuck's sake.
So it's also interesting to me that the word Gotha sounds like goth,
Yeah,
gothic,
Gothic, yeah.
yeah.
Gotham,
Gotham
like
City,
Gotham City,
Melbourne.
which is
That's
always
Melbourne.
dark,
Yeah.
scary.
Mm.
Yeah, Melbourne looks like Gotham City.
Melbourne is Gotham City, man. It was
Yeah,
founded by Mr. Batman.
yeah. It's true. It's true.
And then Goethe, Goethe, a famous writer from that time, has some interesting connections
Go with, yeah.
to
Is that
to some of the weirdness, like Sturm und Drang, and if you look that up, that was like a 20-year period where they were really looking at melodrama and all of these things going on in literature. I mean, really depressing kinds of things. They're trying to lower our
Vibration.
consciousness,
Yeah.
and replace it with this dark, foreboding, brooding energy. And
Can
that's
I
where it
put
gets into the deliberate.
let me ask something here. Like, um, when we talk about lowering our consciousness all the way back here in time, like, because I kind of think that our consciousness, the shift that's happened, has happened now, like since the 80s sort of thing. Like we've been, there's some forerunners, but generally speaking, consciousness has, really taken a split from, like, it feels to me we've come here already imbued with the mission of bringing our consciousness to this realm. So I'm wondering how much they really had to work back then to shift the consciousness, because most of the people potentially were already a part of this. If you bring in the sort of like the clone concept, the Cabbage Patch Babies, the Tartarian population being repopulated, like, how much of the consciousness were they actually battling up against? It feels like it's our consciousness they're battling up against now in time. I mean, just curious, they did a lot of work back there when, the Tartarian idea really puts the population as starting again at this point. So they were like, I guess they were, potentially programming more than battling the consciousness. They were sort of like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well,
There's
I think it was both. I mean, I think that's a good point. I look at the 19th century as just being horrible for humanity. Especially if you look at what happened in our official history, that was bad. It was bad enough, but you have all the orphans. You have they're bringing all the alcohol in, beer and distilled spirits and making it freely available, and uh, all these things that were going on to, again, in my opinion, lower our consciousness. But then you also had the insane asylums
Yeah.
and
Yep.
whatever
Couldn't
the heck
enjoy
was
it.
going on there was not good. I mean, like serious early concentration camp kinds of things. Now,
I
were they
mean,
survivors of a catastrophe? I lean towards this place was destroyed and then they had to bring it back online, is how I land on that topic.
it's
And
a
I think
it's
they,
sorry, go on.
no, I was going to say, and I think it was destroyed through the energy grid.
Mm. And when do you put the destruction of that energy grid?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Where would you put the destruction of that energy grid? Like whereabouts?
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about this here and then we
Mm.
can go back because
Okay.
what I'm going to talk about now I think was one part of it, but I'm open to there having been multiple attacks on the grid. And I just think this was one of many. Because if you look at the whole surface of the earth, I mean, it's just like with all the deserts and everything else. And
Yeah.
Mm.
Scorched.
I
Yeah.
think that land masses just sank.
Mm.
So I think everything we see on of the this place, wherever we are, this realm is different than what it was originally. Because I think the surface of the earth actually sank
Yeah.
with the events that caused where we are today. But I'll go through at least this explanation for part of that.
Yeah, because once we start looking at timelines and extinction events and destructive, like, we could be, the three of us right now could be discussing the thing that happened in 1988, but we're perceiving it as being something that happened hundreds of years earlier. Like, it's like time is so,
Yeah, and if it's retroactive, like as
yeah,
far as or they've rebuilt the past, then how would we
yeah.
know? Everything up to 1988, like
And
before, may have been changed.
And of course, the Mandela effect always it shows us that time is retrospective and things can change backwards and forwards throughout all time when this sort of like glitches happen. So it's just interesting. I find it, we can go. All right. Anyway, go. Let's go.
Okay. So I was intuiting a connection between the Philadelphia experiment in 1492, 1942 years ago. And then I found the first physical evidence that I found for this theory that the Philadelphia experiment was part of what happened here to bring us to the world that we live in today when I was doing the research for this, Recovering Lost History from the Estuaries, Pine Barrens, and Elite Enclaves to the Atlantic Northeast Coast of the United States. And I published that in January of 2023. So I started out to do the research for this, and I was just going to look at a specific place on the Great Egg Harbor River in New Jersey, a place called the Weymouth Furnace, and then move on because I was planning on looking at other places that viewers had suggested. But what I found when I got to looking at the area around the Great Egg Harbor, it pulled me into looking at the whole region. Because swamps and bogs were not the first thing that came to my mind when I think of New Jersey. Now, I grew up in Maryland, not far from New Jersey. I didn't spend much time there. I had some cousins that lived up there, but we always went up the turnpike and didn't really ever get to see the state. So I never associated swamps and bogs with New Jersey. And the Great Egg Harbor River is described as a major river that crosses the largely undisturbed pine lands, also known as the New Jersey Pine Barrens. And the soil's nutrient poor, sandy, acidic. It supports pine trees, orchids, and carnivorous plants. But from that little bit of information, I found two other places in the northeastern United States that have pine barrens, Long Island Central and Massachusetts Coastal. And found this linear relationship between the pine barrens. And then I looked it up on Google Earth and found, I put the pins where these names came up. So like the southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Again, keeping in mind this is where the Pilgrims settled in 1620. You've got Montauk Point here. You've got the Pine Barrens here in central Long Island, which is around the same area where the Brookhaven National Laboratory is, where Tesla's tower was, Wardenclyffe Tower. Plum Island was a biolab that was here. That's not too, this where my arrow is, very close to Lyme, Connecticut, which is where Lyme's disease first showed up, interestingly enough. The Pine Barrens down here, and then that's right across from Philadelphia and the Navy Yard.
So just to be clear, Michelle, you're literally talking about pine trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting to say.
Yeah,
Trees are an
pine,
interesting part of this. We
eagle.
underestimate the connection to trees, and pine trees have been planted fucking everywhere.
Yeah, well, that's a
Of
good
all
point.
the trees,
Yeah.
pine trees, plantations all over Australia for
In
sure.
Australia, yeah, not allowed to grow older than sort of 10 years or so, but yeah, they're everywhere, the plantations.
Yeah, so it's just interesting. And then we've got the giant trees that cut down and the electromagnetic fields that relate and the intelligence of trees. There's so much connection there with trees. So go on. Sorry, I just pointed that out.
Mm-hmm. And that was another part I could have added to this presentation, but that'll be for another time.
Mental note, people, we're going to go through the pines at some point.
And bells.
And
Pines
bells.
Bell
and bells.
towers.
Yes,
Bells.
yes.
So here's the apparent Aleister Crowley connection with the Philadelphia experiment. And with regards to that, I extended the Pine Barrens alignment that I found connecting the three Pine Barrens of New Jersey, Central Long Island, and coastal Massachusetts. Going to the northeast, the alignment connects to Morvah and Cornwall, which is the location of Menantoul, where he was said to have passed his son on the day of the Philadelphia experiment. And then I took it to the southwest towards Louisiana because I knew there was a train in the middle of a bayou there. And then there's trains and train tracks in the New Jersey Pine Barrens also. It was just out in the middle of nowhere.
What's a bayou?
It's like a swamp.
A
It's
swamp.
a swampy area.
Swamp or a bog, Campbell.
The what?
Swamp or a bog. We should call this show
Swamp or bog.
Swamp or bog.
Yeah.
Swamp or bog.
Yeah.
Bayou.
So again, I feel like whatever was happening when this took place just stopped. And I feel like the surface of the earth turned into swamps and these pine barrens and sank and whatever was going on just stopped. Because not only do they find giant skeletons in mounds, they also find giant skeletons at workplaces just randomly. They're digging up for a road. And I'll
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
that
right.
a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
later on. So they're found everywhere. And I feel like everything was just like
Yeah, yeah.
buried.
And it's interesting the ritual too in Menonol. Like they pass someone through a torus, a stone ring, almost like a stargate, right? It's almost like the passing from one timeline to another, maybe.
So these are connections that I found with that event that seem to provide evidence, physical evidence for
Mm.
this happening. And
We so need a
I've
Google
really looked
Flat
in
Earth.
depth.
It's very confusing. We need Google Flat Earth, right?
Yeah. When that happens, I'll use it. But until that happens,
Oh,
this
well,
is
let's
the
see what we
best
can do
source
about that.
Yeah.
of information. But I get it.
Mm.
But I just want to say about that, they're using uh, coordinates, whether it's flat or a sphere, they're
Yeah, yeah.
using global coordinates.
Yeah.
They just
The
change the projection.
numerology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people think the shape of the map makes a difference. I'm finding it doesn't. It's just how they
As far as things are
portray
lined
the
up and
information.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a difference
Yep.
to
But
airplane pilots, does it?
but there's no tool like this, like Google Earth or even Google Maps, where you can get the kind of detail
Yeah,
to
and
do this type of
plot it. Yeah.
tracking. So I'll just say that to anybody that's
That's
looking at it like,
okay,
well,
yes.
what's the shape of the map or
They're
whatever.
like, fuck
It's
you,
like,
Michelle. That's a round map. I'm out.
But
I'm
here's
out.
what we got. But
yeah,
here's what we got.
exactly. It's like, they use projections.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, this is a, depiction that at least you can make the case that there's a
Mm.
line between Morvan Cornwall
Mm.
all the way through,
Yeah, well, they're in
including,
alignment, right?
including this area here, which is, the area in question, from Long Island to the Philadelphia Navy Yard. So on a closer look, you have all three Pine Barren systems here on the top left in an alignment. And then on the bottom left, you see, okay, so here's Cape Cod here and here. Provincetown on the tip of Cape Cod is the location of the Pilgrim Monument, which is here on the left.
Uh-huh.
The
Okay.
Pilgrim Monument is a bell tower. It's the tallest all-granite structure in the United States. It was
What?
said to have been built between 1907 and 1910 to commemorate the first landfall of the Pilgrims in 1620 and the signing of the Mayflower Compact in Provincetown Harbor, and modeled after the Torre del Mangia in Siena, Italy, which was said to have been designed in 1309, as here on the right.
Look,
Of
it's
course.
my
It's like,
mother. It's my mum.
oh, hello,
Hi,
Mrs.
Mom.
Burns.
Who am
Hi
I
there.
talking to?
There's
You're
Campbell.
famous.
Okay. Oh, hi.
And our friend
Hello.
Michelle.
Hello.
And she's made me a cup of tea.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm interrupting because I never get to be with my mother.
No, well, I'm
I
just
love
gonna
you.
leave you. Love you too. Mwah. I still got my lipstick on. See you later. Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Hi, Mom.
That's crazy, like because the Pilgrims didn't come from Italy, so why are they basing it on something in Italy? It's got nothing to do with the new, well, America, right? And that's very Moorish looking, is all I'm going to say.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That's
Yes.
yeah, lots of that. So the Pilgrim Monument is 252 feet, 7.5 inches, or 77 meters tall. Granite, the material that it's made from, is a sonorous rock, meaning that it will make a sound if you strike it. And in the case of granite, it will make a bell-like sound.
Tuning fork, nice.
Okay. So, again, they're coming up with all their explanations of how things got there. And so they tell us this Pilgrim Monument was built between 1907 and 1910. So one of my thoughts is if Crowley's ritual ceremony at Menonol did in fact send a line of rough energy towards Long Island, as claimed by his son Amato to Peter Moon, as mentioned previously, it would have crossed through or near the Pilgrim Monument, with the energy thereby striking it, either directly or indirectly, and would have caused a forced resonant frequency to go through the grid system, either all at the same time or in waves, like the aftershocks of earthquakes, causing it to go haywire, which could lead to the destruction of the entire system and dramatically change the face of the earth. And consider the possibility that the manipulation of time and space involved in the Philadelphia experiment could have also carried this forced resonant frequency back in time to create the cataclysmic event, as opposed to something that happened in the present moment.
Okay, so it was done from 1942, basically. So, do you think that the grid is the worldwide grid? Is that projecting reality, our reality, or at least giving us the frequency as which this reality is lived out in? Because what you just said sounded like they've used that grid like this tuning fork, basically, right, to send their different intention and frequency through in, and that's entered and changed the reality, right, that's being projected.
That's a way of interpreting it. I'm just trying to figure out how this could have happened with the Philadelphia experiment and nobody know.
Mm,
I'm thinking maybe this carried the Philadelphia experiment and the energy that was created by this ceremonial ritual act
mm.
could have, in fact, taken it back through time, creating the time manipulation.
Uh,
It's just
yeah.
it's just a thought, but I do
Mhm.
think that sound was involved in what happened here, because not only do you have bell towers like this, you also have the great organs
Yeah.
that were all through this area, and even in Sydney at the town hall, which
Mm.
looks like the town hall in Philadelphia, and both have, underground train systems connected to them.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Why would you have an organ in a town hall? And the big organ in Philadelphia is in the department store, the Macy's department store next to the town hall. But like these are some of the largest organs in the world.
Wow.
I think this was a perfectly tuned scientific and musical instrument that, everything was like precisely placed and everything was tuned
Mm.
to each other for the purpose of the free energy grid and the
Yeah.
transmission and generation and exchange of energy from above to below. It was all perfectly tuned. So I think one non-resonant frequency, and if you look up non-resonant frequency like on YouTube, it will cause destruction.
Okay.
Um, it will, so it could have like been a domino effect. But if we're looking at time manipulation, and this area has so many things going on having to do with dimensions and portals and time, it would have been like the perfect place to do something like that.
And and there's
Um,
there's a lot to say about the fact that this whole realm that we exist on is about properly is like the organic consciousness needs to be properly tuned. Like that's part of our life. That's part of our makeup that we operate and are dependent on that tuning. So when we're looking at a negatively tuned society or a positively tuned, or should we say a properly tuned culture or a fractured culture, it still goes back to the tuning of us and the tuning. And it's so interesting with the pine trees, because they're pretty well known for being like ancient residences of electromagnetic fields, and the connection to the pineal gland. And so the pine trees would act like I guess an antenna, a natural antenna. So to like bring in the instruments and the bells, and then the pine trees, and then you've got the experience of time, and then bringing them all together, we're either being tuned properly or we're being fractured properly. But they have to all be in operation to either be tuned properly or fractured properly. So either way, we are dependent on a process in this reality of being tuned by something into something. Like, I don't think we would be able to perceive reality without the tuning, is what I'm saying. We're
right,
dependent on it.
right.
Our
Yeah. Well,
existence, our
mm.
connection to perception is dependent on being tuned. So I would say that all this time manipulation and all the experiments obviously have to be founded in any way that facilitates or fractures that tuning process.
It's like radio or, old-fashioned TV, right? You
Yeah.
tune into the right channel and that's what you experience.
Yeah.
Right. And they keep that process going. They keep that interference and that fracturing process going. So we never get it back together enough.
Yep.
They're really good at divide and conquer.
And yet here we are, Michelle, getting it back together, getting our shit together, and thinking our way. We are collectively, as a consciousness, this community, tuning ourselves differently, aren't we? Like we have gone through a process in this lifetime to seek out a different level of tuning. We've turned away from their tuning objects. We've turned away from their programming, their televisions, their electromagnetic interference, their all those things. And we've taken back on board original techniques of being tuned ourselves, like AKA being back in nature, number one, which is a big push from this community, denying anything to do with 5G, anything to do with that electromagnetic field interference. We take a lot of time to do that. We wear our little little pendants. We put our little fucking pyramids around. We really do try to block this this fractured tuning grid. So I mean, there's so much to say about this that we probably haven't really said. Go on, Campbell.
That's why we can see different things, right? Like we've changed the channel. We're watching the X-Files and everyone else is still on Days of Our Lives.
Exactly. We've tuned into a different reality, and we've become, even unconsciously, we've spent a lot of time putting objects and places and experiences into our realms that facilitate an organic tuning of ourselves.
And
which would be
one more point is on the 80s is that's when synthetic music came in, like the synthesizers.
Yes.
Right, in the 80s.
Yes,
indeed. New romantic kind of wave. Yeah.
Yep. And that's a really good description of what started happening to me in like 2015, 2016, sometime in that time period, when I started seeing things come out of the environment around me. I started seeing this when I saw, I mentioned Pinnacle Mountain in Arkansas and the big megalithic stones everywhere. And I'm like, am I the only one that's seeing this? And every time I left the house, once I started to see it, once I had pierced the veil and my perception had shifted, it was like everywhere. That was about 10 years ago. And I knew I was the only one seeing it. It's like, eeks. But it was like tuning into something completely different.
Yeah.
And it is stressful, when nobody else sees it.
Yeah, man.
It's like,
like sheep syndrome.
So that was a big push to me doing, starting to do this. Because at least give people the option. Do you see this? Do you believe this? Do you not? That's fine. Whatever you resonate with. But it's, I think, at least important to put it out there.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of
it's not allowed anymore. Sorry, they brought the fact checkers in.
Sorry, Cam.
You go.
No, please.
No,
Did you finish?
Go ahead.
I have finished.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, like if we talk from this conversation, like this experience we're in right now, this battle, it's basically who controls the tuning fork. Like that's sort of what it feels like to me. Who's controlling the tuning fork? How sophisticated is their understanding of how dependent we are on the tuning fork as a biological, vehicle on this realm? Like it determines our whole perception of reality. So we're at a war with the tuning fork right now. And what you've described so far, Michelle, is sort of like the play on like taking control of that tuning fork since the beginning of this reset, at least.
So let me bring Aleister Crowley into the picture. And it's my belief.
Bring him in.
My belief that he was directly responsible for bringing us to Crazy Town. He was known openly as the wickedest man in the world. And I'm sure some of you will be aware of who this person is, but I would surmise that this name would be unfamiliar to most people. And I learned about him from Peter Moon's books, and he really spent a lot of time on this guy.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
And where I really learned about how this timeline has been occulted. the movies that we've talked about already. I remember the Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
that came out several years ago, and the opening scene of that was a satanic ritual.
Interesting, because
You
that
know, we
was
don't
kind
even,
of the movie that brought him back, wasn't it? He was he was a massive, like, I think, ice addict, almost killed himself, Robert Downey Jr., destroyed his career. And I'm pretty sure that was the first movie that kind of brought him back. So that's interesting. That was all
Yeah,
about
I mean,
satanic ritual, right?
and he was all about ritual. So he's like he ritualized the tuning fork of the human being. Like he in ritualizing the human process in because he really did innovate the ritual, didn't he? Like, I mean, that was a big part of Aleister Crowley's impact on the realm. He brought this concept of, well, we would say satanic rituals, but this concept of ritualization. And do you guys remember his most famous sort of phrase? Because it was like, I think, let me just get it up here. Yeah, it was something like, do what thou wilt
Oh yeah,
shall
yeah,
be
yeah.
the whole
Do
of the
as
Yep.
thou
law.
wilt. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yep.
that is really interesting because that's not seeking permission. That's a frequency command.
Yeah.
It shall be the whole of the law. So I think Aleister Crowley was becoming a master or was already a master at tuning the human being. That was sort of,
Manifesting
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And I think he was the doorway for these
Yeah.
non-human beings to come in
Well,
to do what
yes.
they've been doing.
Lamb, right?
And,
And the whole grey phenomena. Yeah.
it's so much worse than just that. And I will be talking about the book of the law and do what thou wilt. Because what it brought in is just horrifying.
Yeah.
That has been going on around us, and people have no idea of what's been happening to kids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's been well hidden up until recently, and it's like they got so brazen, it's like almost in your face. But I'll go into that here in just a moment.
Yeah.
So Crowley was also known as the Beast,
Beast.
which is what his mother called him when he was young, and his father died when he was 11. So he and his mom didn't really get along, but that was him.
Interesting. 11, the
There are many
12.
details to find online about Crowley's controversial life and times, so I will cut to the chase. He was highly involved in Freemasonry and in ceremonial magical practices, including sex magic, and he was known to have been bisexual. He also assumed the title of Baphomet within the Ordo Templi Orientis, aka OTO, originally founded in the early 20th century by German occultists and modeled after Freemasonry. So this Crowley was one of 3 Baphomets that I know of. Albert Pike was a
Oh, yeah.
Baphomet in Freemasonry, and so was Henry Clausen. And Henry Clausen authored the report on the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Oh, okay.
It's the only thing I know that he's known for, but apparently he was high up in Freemasonry. And then Crowley was Baphomet of OTO.
So when was Pearl Harbor? Was
And
that 42 as well?
it was 41. It was December 7th
41.
of 1941. Yeah.
So it is possible that through Crowley, a different entity or a different thing, well, I don't even know what the right word would be. Let's just say entity,
yeah.
like started to work through him, and that process like gave birth to all of the shit in our reality, AI, EMFs, all that shit. But like back then, it was Crowley and Crowley's people that were essentially trying to kind of dislodge the tuning of our organic matrix and override it with their will. Would you say that was they were overriding it with their will, which is so specifically to do with us as creator beings. And in our whole culture, and what religion has done for our whole culture is take away the understanding that our will overwrites everything. So, when you say, so be it, or it is done, it is a command. It's not a prayer. It's not a hope. It's not a wish. It's a command. And we as a society have become so weak. with our commands. It's almost politically unacceptable to command anything these days. You know, we become weak in that, but Crowley demonstrates the opposite. They were all about overriding it with their will. Sorry, side note, go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Crowley described the Baphomet as a divine androgyny and the hieroglyph of divine perfection. Okay. So again, this is what are we seeing
Yeah, fast
playing out in
forward to
living color
2020,
today?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
go.
So I'm just saying, I mean, in terms of explaining how we got here,
Mm.
this to me is very logical and plausible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
So I
interesting.
believe this information is quite relevant to the bizarre agendas we see playing out in the world today. The image on the left popped up when I searched for they want to turn us into them
That's
instead of us being
interesting.
in the image of God on the right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they want to completely change humanity into something unrecognizable from,
Yeah, the false creation, basically, right?
yeah. And I see transgenderism as a step towards transhumanism, which is their
Oh,
Yeah.
goal.
totally. Totally.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care when an adult wants to do whatever. You want to do that, whatever. Don't you shove it down our throats. Don't force it on kids.
Yeah,
Shut
I
the
mean that's
None
doors.
of
a
that. And that's where we are.
that's a total agenda, and it's been linked to the gay and lesbian communities, which was, you know, so it's been such an agenda. And it, you know, it
It's
just
an
leads
agenda.
its way. What we're watching the other day, Campbell, it just leads its way to this, what is it, LGBTQ
Oh,
something
yeah, yeah,
plus.
yeah.
And the plus
Mhm.
is what it's all leading to, which is, you
Right.
know, the acceptance of minor attracted adults. That's the plus that they're bringing in. Yeah.
Right. Which is another way of saying adults and children. They want to normalize pedophilia.
Yeah.
Okay. It's, this is what we're seeing play out. So
Totally.
Crowley claimed that when he was honeymooning with his wife, Rose Kelly, in Cairo, Egypt, he was contacted by a disembodied entity named Iwas, who provided him
Yep.
with the Book of the Law, which
Book of the
became the
law.
basis for Thelema, an esoteric and occult religious movement that Crowley founded in the early 1900s. And Crowley identified himself as a prophet of a new era of spiritual development for humanity. The basic tenet of the Book of the Law and Thelema is do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In other words, you can do anything you want without guilt, no matter how bad it is or how much it hurts others. So it's just like took like sovereignty to the extreme,
Yeah, yeah.
being, being a spiritual being, being a spiritual divine being that humanity is having a human experience to its worst manifestation,
Mm.
and promoted by by the system, which is how we got to all the stuff we were just talking about. And it's not really surprising that the first OTO lodge in the United States was the Agape Lodge or the Star Sapphire Lodge, which was the Agape Lodge in Hollywood, in Los Angeles.
Of course, it was
And that was
interesting.
established in 1935.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting with Crowley because if his whole work was to override the current grid with his will, and you know the Book of Law is so connected with that intention, you know, and if we like, I don't know if where you've gone with linking Aleister Crowley to the Philadelphia experiment,
Mhm.
Michelle, like you know that could just have been a carry on in as much as I don't know you like he's opened the gate. He's opened the gate. He's been given this knowledge that, you know, is probably not in alignment with harmony on this realm. And that knowledge laid way to, you know, being able to manipulate the tuning fork, the resonance of the grid. And in that, eventually they opened the gate, the Philadelphia experiment. They sent the ship. They sent the ship
Yeah.
through the gate.
I mean, it sounds like the ideas have come through, but they haven't had the technology, right, to get it done. And so they've gone through time and they've got all their technology, and then they might have got it ready by 1942, and then they've done it. And when they did it, they changed the past as well.
Right.
Mm,
And the other thing that I see is that they reverse engineered the energy grid from the free energy grid for the benefit of all to an energy harvesting system. So
yes.
they're harvesting our
Absolutely.
energy
Yeah,
from
yeah,
what was originally a positive thing.
yeah. It used to
Which
And a
we
be
call
conscious,
loosh,
higher
which we call
consciousness.
loosh.
loose.
Interesting.
The energy
Yes.
grid sucks now.
Yeah. So there are a lot of details available to find about Crowley's life, but there were two that stuck out for me that I wanted to bring up. One is that he was said to have spent mid-1919 on a climbing holiday in Montauk on the eastern tip of Long Island, and the other was that he was said to have died on December 1st of 1947, and that his ashes were buried under a tree in Hampton, New Jersey, in the garden of German occultist Karl Germer, who was his successor as the outer head of the OTO. And Hampton, so to me it stuck out that it was at the junction of a railroad because I think this went through the rail lines. I think they were pre-existing, and that was part of this, whatever took place. And then Hampton is centrally located to places that we've been looking at in the Northeast United States. So, Philadelphia's down here, Brookhaven's here, Montauk's here, Tesla Center, where the Wardenclyffe Tower was here. The Bell Labs Homedale complex will be another conversation, but that's here. That's very interesting. I've researched this area in depth, and so I do have a lot more information, but just trying to keep it as simple and short as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's obviously a big tide of music and rock and roll and all that kind of stuff. And like obviously we see Jay-Z with his shirt, Doest Thou Wilt, and Taylor Swift, is she the daughter of, Anton LaVey's daughter and all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I've heard that.
And it's interesting because the word muse, it says a person or personified force who is the source for inspiration for a creative artist. I mean, music, right? They're being told what to do by an influence. And by the way, they changed the music to 440 hertz in 1939.
So a few things to add to that. Like I said in the last show, I believe that Barbara Bush was actually Aleister Crowley. And there you have the finger going up in front of the mouth here, which is the exact same gesture as what's called the Shh statue, which was erected in October of 21 in Jersey City across the Hudson River from Manhattan.
Yeah.
It is 80 feet or 24 meters high, and they called it Water's Soul, but it's called the Shh statue.
And we see a lot of celebs doing that, push, don't we?
I mean, the Book of the Law is an interesting one because, like at the end of the day, the Book of the Law, when I was reading it, was like, and I didn't read it all, but just when I was looking at it, when I was looking at the Montauk, it's because it's really is an act. It's basically goes back to the idea that you are the commander, you are the creator, and your command alters reality. It goes back to, so from a positively charged perspective, it's a book kind of about sovereignty on that level, that your command shifts the grid around you, the reality that's holding your grid together. But when it's corrupted by, I guess, ego, let's say that would be the easiest word to do it, then you get what do you get a world of as a result of that? It would be like narcissism. And maybe addiction, and maybe like dissociation, stuff like this. So
And
which
it's
is kind of the world
externalized.
we live in today, right? Narcissistic, disassociated. When you talk about how your friends and family don't like have no idea of this work, like what's wrong with them, they're smart and intelligent, but they're disassociated. So I don't know, it's an interesting one. Like they're definitely that Aleister Crowley's impact on reality and the effects it's had today have tuned the world into a narcissistic, disassociated,
Totally. it's like the Bible,
And
right?
we love
I mean,
ritual.
the Bible has good messages in there, and if everyone sort of follow the New Testament, then the world will be better. But it's used as a control system. It's like nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So it's basically that they externalize everything, right, rather than internalize it. So they use all this stuff to get money and wealth and power and sex and whatever, right? All this external stuff because they're basically spiritually immature. But if you read it properly and you're spiritually mature, it's all about you and internalizing these and becoming the teachings and by that way you become more powerful because you become your own creator. But yeah, it's like everything, right? They've exverted it or inverted it.
Yeah, I mean, it activates your will or it hijacks it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And because we live on a worldwide, because we are the tuning forks for this worldwide experience of reality, worldwide grid, it would make a lot of sense to me that just by us tuning out of it and tuning into ourselves, into our own will, and tuning out of the hijacking, we would have created the most significant split in the timeline organically, and that could it could explain the Mandela effect. Because this grid, Michelle, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, because this grid that we talk about here, or this frequency that gets tuned or untuned or whatever the words, like it is said, Cam and I talk about this, essentially acts like a world, it acts like a brain, The grid that we talk about is similar to the neuro pathways of the mind. So when you are conscious of the neuro pathways of the mind and you want to shift and experience a different reality, you have to form a new neuron pathway that forms a new highway in your mind that starts to become reality and attract things to that reality. So it's like you jump over highways in your brain. So it's very symbolic for me when we talk about organic grids and hijack grids and sacred grids. To me it feels very, the analogy of the human brain is very similar. And also you got this connection with the human mind and the polarization of it, because we've been split in two, right? The nature of the human brain is it's parted in two, which is really fucking weird that it has that process going on. So we're constantly in a state of polarized duality. We can't help it. It's how our brain works. We have to try very, very hard to have those moments of holistic thought, where you would obtain some complete and whole experience of reality in a moment. It's so fleeting. And, we live in, so, I mean, one could say that, our brains are a micro version of the macro, and the discussions we have about grids and frequencies and realities and timeline shifts are very metaphorically exactly the same thing that happens in the brain, which then links so specifically to the Mandela effect, because if we've all sought out a different process of tuning ourselves, then we would have created a different tuned frequency and we would be in a different reality right now today.
Yeah,
Putting that
totally.
in there.
Right.
Totally.
And the idea that the fall or fallen consciousness was when we went from our heart, which has a stronger magnetic field and connects us all, to our brain,
Yeah.
which, like you said, is dual natured and polarized. It was never meant to be the primary information gatherer source. It was more like an office assistant GPS. And our heart, much bigger magnetic field than what the brain generates.
Absolutely. And what's one of the strongest things the most obvious things that occurred in this timeline? People left nature. So if we're talking about pine trees and nature as a bigger, broader version of that, there's an organic, natural tuning that goes on because they are tuning forks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the world with those giant trees still, like the reality would have been tuned entirely. Imagine the collapse of reality when those giant trees were removed. Like, trees are a frequency antenna, and that's the whole ringing cedars of Russia Anastasia work talks about the cedars. And so, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that we collectively all ended up in these, cityscapes, which are so obviously and so clearly tuning us, designed and built to tune us to a specific grid. So we left nature. And now we're all about like being far away from it and replacing it synthetically. I mean, most of the kids today, they don't have any connection with it, very little. We have to force it on them, and it's not in harmony where their natural flow is going, because it's all being derived by technology into an off-world reality, into the digital realm, which is entirely different tuning than we experience with nature. And of course, then you got to bring in the heavy metals and why they do that. Why are we so immersed in heavy metals? In every single aspect of reality, heavy metals have been inputted in. So, I mean, that's also a connection there, but I won't go off in a
Well, if
rabbit
our
hole.
bodies are also tuning forks, then that and like putting all these heavy metals and other stuff in our bodies changes the rate they can vibrate at, literally, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're literally trying to change us
Yeah.
Yeah.
and poison us
Yeah.
and
We
keep
must
us
be so
from
marvelous.
becoming.
We must be really
We
annoying
are.
to them because
Yeah,
We're
they want to keep us
marvelous.
from They want us to keep us from accessing those higher abilities. They don't want that kind of person being. So I just have a few more slides left. I just want to bring up the globalist elite love in particular to pass men off as women to an unknowing public and rub our noses in it. And these are just two of countless examples.
yes,
And
yes.
there are a lot of them.
There's a
Yeah,
lot
well,
of them. Yeah, man.
we tripped out the other day because we watched one that said that Hitler became Walt Disney, and Walt Disney, the actor that played both of those roles, was Trump's father. And so that, the connection with the cloning actors of the world, the shift over of, what role they're playing.
I mean, it's all so weird. I was just looking at the Crowley, became Bush, so married to Bush Senior, who started the FBI, who took out JFK, gave son to his son was just Bush Jr., who was president at 911, and their nicknames are Gog and Magog. I mean, it's, it's like, what the hell?
It's really everywhere,
Mm.
and it's evil, and they're laughing at us. So to add insult to injury, they bring out fact checkers to deny what has become more obvious to more people as time goes on. So, we've got
Fact checkers.
this gaslighting going on. Oh no, no, no. Oh no, these are women.
Oh
We
God.
just
But I
believe
mean,
us.
how badly is fact checking gone? As soon as it gets fact checked, we're like validated. Like
Just,
it's so hasn't worked that way.
there's a few pictures of Michelle Obama standing around with other women, and from the back,
It's,
Yes.
like her back, she's like a bloody linebacker, man.
yeah,
She's twice the size of all the other women. Well, sorry.
and the
So
biggest thing is when they wear pants, you
Dance
catch
on
it the right
Ellen.
way, and there it is,
so
There's a
it's
lot of that out there.
so basically from the example of Aleister Crowley, and if we did connect the Philadelphia experience to yet another ritual of sending a ship through a portal, like sending the ship through the gate, like we've achieved it. So, like every single event that occurs on this realm would be part of that ritualistic, you know, tuning process that they have been, that our whole reality has become about. So every single event, every single thing that basically, if it makes the news, it's probably most likely part of their so yeah, I
Agenda,
mean, like, because
totally.
how would these events occur without that? They're so unnatural. They're so unnatural, all these disasters.
Mm. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that they tune us, and I think we're causing at least half of it, right, as far as energy wise, because we believe it, and when we're creative spirits,
But now we don't. So
but
now
now
we have
we
to,
don't.
by
Exactly.
that nature, have a rift in reality.
Mm.
So you can look at it as spells being broken.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
binding and all that stuff isn't working anymore.
yeah, man.
Um, and then we saw that same gesture earlier with Barbara Bush and the statue, they're
Yeah.
don't tell anybody. But then Paul
Oh, yeah.
being rumored to be Billy Shears for the
Ah,
longest time, and then Billy
interesting.
Shears is rumored to be Crowley's son, and that Crowley MK altered him or 10 years before Crowley's death.
Wow. Crowley
You
was
know,
on the
no one
cover of.
has proof,
Yeah.
but it was thought
It
by.
was- sorry, you go.
So there he is on the cover of Sergeant Pepper.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. He's right there.
And that was what came up when I looked to see if I could find anything online saying that Billy Shears was Crowley's son. And somebody pointed me, this was a comment that was left on a video where this was brought up. The Tavistock Institute is in Cornwall, which has had a lot of influence on the music. The occult and the demon music followed, this person said. And then I mentioned, okay, so Crowley was on the cover of Sergeant Pepper. I mentioned this the last time we talked about what appears to be the burning towers in the album cover of the New World Tour of Paul McCartney's.
Yep.
Here,
That's
when I
crazy,
pulled that
that
up.
picture, yeah.
And then you have the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony in London.
Yes, yes.
And this is memorable. This is the most memorable thing that I can think of from that. I didn't even watch the Olympics, but I remember something about this, where you have the really creepy dance performance with the nurses and the children in hospital cribs and Voldemort looking like a giant Grim Reaper
Yep.
towering above it all.
And Russell Brand
Okay.
as the Pied Piper.
There's also a pepper parade in the 2012 Olympics opening
I
ceremonies.
didn't know that. I
I
haven't
didn't know
seen
that.
that.
Sergeant Pepper's, gee.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And
The
of course,
Rosalind Franklin Laboratory.
I was going to say all the
I just have
pyramids around the outside of it. Sorry.
It's okay. I just have two more slides, I think. Coincidentally or not, Aleister Crowley's hometown of Royal Leamington Spa, which is where he was born and raised, was also the location of the Rosalind Franklin Laboratory, which first opened in June of 2021 and was the United Kingdom's first COVID PCR testing mega lab, and part of the Lighthouse Laboratory Network that was the heart of the UK Health Security Agency's plans for managing COVID-19. And it ceased operation in February 2023. So this was in Crowley's hometown. So you've got the reference at the opening ceremonies in 2012 in London. You've got this big lab in his hometown. And then I think you mentioned this the last time, Kelly, the opening ceremony at Paris last summer.
Yeah.
The biblical battle over the Last Supper drag act in the opening ceremonies with drag queens portraying the Last Supper
Oh, it
and
was
a
so
blue
fucking-
human
it's so
as the main
crazy.
course.
The Paris one was just ridiculous.
That was.
You couldn't get more ridiculous than the Paris one. I mean, yeah, it was a joke, was it not, to us? My God.
Yep. So you have biological males paired up with females in competition sports at the Paris Olympics. And then in the closing ceremony, you have this light preacher thingy going on. How did we get here?
Yeah.
And again, it's more gaslighting. They want to normalize
Yes.
this.
Yeah, totally. That they want to bring out what they've been doing behind closed doors for the last however long. They want to bring it into the public so they can do
Yeah.
it in public and have access to everyone, right?
Yeah.
And anybody that brings attention to truth, that questions what their agenda is and what they're trying to do,
It's
gets
racist.
blacklisted, gets jailed. The one that's trying to call out the truth is the one that gets penalized.
Yeah, man, totally. Every time. Like
Because that's all they've got.
People have literally been put in jail for Facebook posts. I mean, we saw it in Australia in 2020. They
Yeah.
burst into a pregnant lady's house and dragged her to jail because of a Facebook post. It was just insane.
It's interesting that how do you say the AWAS
Which one?
the
That's how I pronounced it.
the entity that or the transmission that Crowley received that wrote the Book of Law, which gave birth to this entire fucked up mess that we're in. It's interesting that AWAS has AI in like AWAS, AIWASS. Like it's given way to AI, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was
There's
and will be again.
so
Yep.
we're
And they
basically
want,
sorry, go on.
no, I was just going to say, like I said earlier, they want to transfer human consciousness, if they haven't already, into
Yeah,
these
Elon's new
machines.
girlfriend, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, they're already pushing the agenda as well of people falling in love with AI, and of course, next they're going to roll out the bots, and
Yeah.
you'll be able to get married and live alone, never see anyone else, never leave your apartment. So it's yeah. But the most disappointing thing is, it seems that some people are still going along with this.
So that's my
That's it.
presentation for today.
That was
And,
cool.
just for your consideration, to explain how things got so mucked up.
I mean, it's good. It's interesting because,
Yeah.
like Alistair, looks like he was the first one to you know, Trans Am himself, right? Like he turned into a woman, and then that's what we see continuing through all the stars, right? Which of course stars, Hollywood stars, fallen stars, fallen angels. It's all the same kind of language, right? And now we see them doing their rituals in front of us, and I mean, you wouldn't want to have like a little kid these days with all the pop music, man, and all the people they put up in front of them to be their idols and that. They're all just, I mean, just you've seen it. I mean, I don't even know what to say, right?
I
Satanic
mean, so
is the least of it.
A was and Crowley sort of like because Cameron and I've always talked about the advanced intelligence and the interface that you build around it. So it appears that that was the origin of the interface that started to shift our reality very dramatically. Like, would you how's your research gone, Michelle, with like pre-Crowley and time manipulation? Have you got any context before Crowley and the AWAS transmission around fucking with the timelines?
That's the one that I was guided to.
Yeah.
You hear things with John D,
I'm
and we
dead.
talked about that a little last time, and he might even be a proxy for Crowley in the timeline. Because I really feel like at some point it's backfill. All the history is backfill, and at some point real history begins with these controllers, globalist elite, whatever you want to call them, written into that history, which I think was sometime in the 1700s.
The reset.
Yeah, and that they've been like bringing things back online so they could use them. The example of the trolley cars or trams that were pulled by horses, and then they were electrified, and then they were taken out. So I feel like they had to use horses to get them going to use them because originally it was all free energy. And so they needed something. They needed to get the railways back online so they could haul the mining um, ore and gold and whatever they happened to be mining. So it was like they got to work right away harvesting everything that they could harvest. So whether it was the mines or the trees or you name it, the people,
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
redirecting, repurposing so they could get everything possible out of this realm, which I believe they don't care a bit about, you know, get everything out of here and then destroy it is kind of what I think they have in mind or had in
So
mind. I don't see
we,
them getting away with it, but
where,
that's what I see where we were going.
where
It's
do you think
interesting.
they're taking the stuff to? Like back to a different timeline? Like, is that possible?
They get everything they can out of here, including humanity stuck in cyborgs and go somewhere else. This place is trashed. Again, I don't think they're going to get away with it. I really don't. But that's
No.
definitely
Well, it's
where we were going.
interesting. It's interesting, Michelle, because one of the conversations that Cam and I had the other day, which like as far as the idea of them getting away with it, is an interesting one because we've always put the experience of the Mandela effect in a certain as in it's happening to us now and we're remembering the old timeline. Cam, you can explain this because this was your theory. But the idea that they're getting away with it may be not at all connected to the timeline we sit on. Like that we're already in a different timeline to them, that we're like viewing this almost retrospectively as an observer, that it's not our timeline. So yeah, go through that
Well,
little theory we had the other day,
well,
Cam. I'll let you explain because it was
should we
yours,
do it
darling.
next time?
Yours.
We've been going 2.5 hours, and that's a big topic. So should we maybe do that on our next chat?
Anyway, now go on. Just get a little bit in,
Well,
little bit in. Come on, let's
just a
go.
little
Let's
bit
go.
is basically, so we see the Mandela effects. We think that, we've got this view of what's original, right? So there used to be Berenstain, right? That's our original thought's been changed to Berenstain. Well, what if that original thought is actually been implanted? So we've switched timelines, or we've changed our perception of time and our frequency. So the new timeline is actually what we think of as the old. Does that make sense? And so everyone who's going, no, 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 it's always been Berenstain, is because it has. We've changed our perception because when we've moved up in frequency, everything changes retrospectively. So I see it as more the reverse of what most people are looking at. They're looking at, oh, well, everyone else is crazy. It's always been like this. But maybe what we see is the change because we're the ones that are changing.
Yes, yes. So we will go into that with the next show,
Yes.
everyone. But it's a
Very
fascinating
brutal scary.
concept. It
Mm.
is a fascinating concept that we are the ones that are on the new timeline. We're not the ones who are remembering the old timeline. So anyway, it would flip the whole conversation that we have around time manipulation and what's happening to us specifically on this realm right now. And I've always found it would be so fascinating, would it not, to have three other people on this show that have no relationship to this whatsoever. It's not in their reality. They don't even acknowledge it. They're disassociated. It's like completely bizarre and science fiction. Up along our conversation, you would see a very specific time difference in timelines.
Mm.
We're so different now in timelines that they don't even it's not even their reality at all. It ceases to exist. It doesn't exist. So there are two timelines running here. But which one are we on is the question.
Mm. Yep.
Just another side note.
Yes, yes. But we
We're
will go into
determined
that
to
on our
figure this
next
one
show.
out, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
you've given us an amazing timeline here of how this could have all unfolded through our linear timeline now, the current one that we're like looking at through history. Like it's, linking it to Aleister Crowley in the Book of Law and how it was, and how that, it was like a code for, tuning the human frequency that changes reality. And whether the information is never good or bad, it just is who wields it at the time. The connection with pine trees, absolutely such a good connection. I hadn't thought about it in that way before, but it makes so much sense. So much sense.
Mm.
So the natural world and the trees are very important to how all of this has unfolded and will continue to unfold.
Yeah, yeah. And just as a side note, they call the leaves on pine trees needles. All right. Have they invented that? We've heard a little bit about needles
Good
lately.
point. Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, and then you've got all the
Yeah.
statues of the pine cones and that spherical, perfect creation of the pine cone as far as sacred geometry goes, and the
Yeah,
pineal gland,
the
and
pineal gland and
so basically it's all
Mm.
basically a manipulation of our pineal gland. Would you say that it's almost like all of it goes back to the manipulate, because the pineal gland gives us is sort of, what would you say? Would you say that would be our like
That could be the tuning device, right?
I mean,
The
is
Off on your
antenna.
radio. Yeah.
yeah, the tuning yeah.
Mhm.
Because would you say the pineal gland would be the antenna versus the crown? Because it does.
Well,
I mean, obviously, it's a war on our pineal glands, like hands down.
yeah,
It's a war there, man. That's fluoride right there.
right. Exactly. Exactly. That's first thing that came to mind when you said that, the fluoride in the water, you know, the poison and everything that we
Mm,
eat and where
Mm,
um
mm.
but yeah, it is. It's a war for our consciousness.
mm,
And the pineal gland is key. And I only know mine's open from the intuitive stuff that comes through. Think more, in terms of being able to like see auras and have a much better sense of those things in the unseen world that we can't see. Imagine what it would be like if our pineal glands were fully functioning and open, instead of being relegated to the world of woo-woo and, you know, show me, prove it to me, that kind of thing. When
mm.
a lot of things we're talking about, we can't.
No.
And it's like the universe or spirit wants this information to come back out. And if the only way I'm going to get information about this cold weather event in Ireland in 1740 and 1741 is for a friend of mine to stop by and say, "Hey, your guys want me to tell you something." That's how it came to me.
Mm,
All right. So it's like people distrust that kind of input, but it's like that's how we get it because it's gone. The truth
yeah.
is gone
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
our world.
That's the
We have to find it in
imagination.
other ways.
Like they spend so much time, right? Basically trying to tell us our imagination is stupid, right? Just believe what you can see outside of you and what you can prove and all this stuff. And people who have debates and debates are just like that they're so silly because all it is one person trying to make the other person believe what they do. Well, that's all a debate is. I mean, and we're all in our own little world, right? It's all perspective. So if you need someone to give you the truth, the problem there is you're looking for a guru and a leader, which makes you a follower, which means you can never get to the truth.
Right.
Although it is fun having a good old chew on something, Campbell.
Oh
I like
yes,
having a
well,
good old
conversations are
chew.
great.
chew.
That's where the info
It,
comes through, right? Like someone will say something and you're like, dum 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 dum.
yeah.
See it.
And that's why it's so important that you do attempt to gather physically in person because your conversation doesn't have to end at a 3 hour Zoom
Yeah,
timeline.
I know,
You
right?
know, you can just keep fucking going instead of us going, oh, I'm sorry, keep going. Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle, I'm interrupted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We would have like 3 days and like everyone would get out everything. So
Mm.
that is the benefit of gathering in person.
Oh, Kelly disappeared
It
mid-sentence. All right, we'll see if she pops back in.
is,
Um, but yes, anything you want to add to the information?
along the lines of what Kelly just said, I mean, I think th the best thing is for people to question the narrative, do their own research, and it's not all going to fit. You know, we just took the initiative and started doing this on our own.
Mm. Indeed, right? Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it,
Like I've always been a weirdo, but yes. Oh,
My
welcome back
battery died.
on
welcome
your
back.
phone.
My
Did you
battery
did your
died.
computer
So,
run out of
So
energy?
I've got to end the show. I've got to end the show now, guys, by
All
just
right.
asking you, like, what's your consensus on the possibility of 1988 being a worldwide extinction event from this conversation?
1988, yeah.
anything is possible in this strange world that we live in, where apparently they found ways to create mass events, whether amnesia or perception altering, you name it. Obviously, from our conversations, just this one and the last one, that's been going on.
Mm.
So, would they have the ability to even do more than that? I would say yes, because they've
Mm.
hidden so much from us. And, apparently the technology is there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest clue is we don't even know where we are, what year it is, what we're doing, who we are. Like we don't know. We don't have a reference point, right? So clearly everything's been completely muddled up. But
Right.
yes, this has been another awesome conversation, and thank you, Michelle. But I think we may have to do this again. We seem like we're not at the end of
Yeah,
the conversation yet. So we'd love to have you back on in a week or two.
that would be great. I would love to talk about more about sound and pine needles and bells and
Yes,
things like
up for
that.
that, man.
Um,
Frequencies, yes. Awesome.
yeah, there's a lot, a lot to consider.
Mm,
And this again was my own guidance, how I went down this. I know there's a lot of good research. We're all guided differently. But again, for people that are watching or interested, it's always good to question anything and everything. We're just putting out there what we're finding, asking honest, genuine questions about what happened here,
yeah.
what's going on. We've been kept in the dark and fed garbage.
Yeah,
And so
man.
just trying to make sense of all of the puzzle pieces that we have. And, you know, our viewers have that information too. They have puzzle pieces too.
Yeah, we've
And
all
once you start waking up to it and seeing things differently, it brings more information in.
indeed.
And it's why I'm going to encourage you all once again to submit your information, theories, and objects of interest to the newspaper. Let's start putting it all together. I mean, outside of Zoom, where hundreds more can be involved in the conversation.
Definitely. So links below, guys. Link to Michelle's channel as well. If you're not a subscriber, go across and subscribe. She's got tons, probably thousands by now, of really, really good, well-researched, well laid out videos, unlike myself,
Oh, she's good.
just
She's good,
everywhere.
Campbell.
She's
She makes us look like a big fat 3-year-old mess, you and me.
Yes, and get out there and research for yourself, guys. Be autodidactic, of course.
Yes.
Um, but yes, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Kelly, whose face we cannot see.
Yeah, fantastic.
And
Sorry, I blacked out. My
you
phone's
blacked
about to
out.
die as well.
Right.
Geez, I didn't charge myself properly for this conversation, did
You
I?
did not get your shit together.
Didn't.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
fantastic,
Michelle. We
Michelle.
love
We
you.
fucking love you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work. What a great legacy you leave behind on this realm. You've done
Yes,
fucking excellent, mate.
you have. I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely have you back on soon. And everyone watching, give us a like, subscribe, and leave us comments. Let us know your
Yep.
piece of the puzzle.
Yep. All right,
And,
that's
and
excellent.
but just let me butt in here, Kelly. Many
Butt in,
thanks
mate.
to
Gotta
you
be quick.
both. Many thanks to you both and all that you're doing. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, mate.
We feel the same. All right. Well, we shall bid you adieu, but we shall be back for part 3 of this chat in a couple of weeks. All right.
Yep. All
Looking
right.
forward
Good
to
luck
it.
to
Michelle,
everyone. Have a great
have an
week.
amazing
See you
day.
next
Yes.
Friday.
I'll see you next week.
Say,
Bye for now.
bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.